Oh yeah, this is a nice little brain off for me right now. This is me getting to my weekend, Anna. This is
Yep.
just.
Yep. Then do some painting and whiskey or something.
There'll definitely be whiskey on the shelf. For
Oh,
sure.
okay. There you
Nice.
go. There you go. Huh?
Good. Drinks are good sometimes.
And I'm really, really, really looking forward to GaryCon next year. It'd be great to see you both.
Yes.
Yeah,
me
it'll be
too.
great.
That will be
a
so
real
much
fun time. Definitely.
There's so many friends that come into GaryCon that it would be just awesome.
Yeah, it's gonna be a real fun.
Then we'll see what we
I'm
can
more
do.
excited about that one than Game Hole, and I think it's the timing, with COVID and everything.
Yeah.
And me
Yeah.
just actually reacclimatizing myself to people. It's like Game Hole. I'm still a little bit. I don't want to be around people.
Yeah.
But GaryCon, I am like a rabid dog. I want in.
Yeah,
on
exactly.
that
Me
thing.
too. I think we can be beyond pandemics then and have fun. So yeah.
Yeah, and I'm gonna, because the last one, of course, was forgetting the COVID year. The one before it was cancelled, like the GaryCon 12. So my map never got to see prime time. I was disappointed by that, and I had a big version of it that I was gonna do at the auction. And I had the dragon that I painted for them, and it's still sitting there on the shelf. But I'm beginning to get that excitement again because I'm gonna paint something for them again. I'm doing a map for them again. You know.
And we should do big on seminars and stuff. Meaning we should have like a fantasy mapping show on stage.
100%.
Yeah.
No, I'm in for
100%.
that. I'm in for that. We just got to get that.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been trying, and I'm not bashing anyone, but
And then we
I've
should
been
have
trying to
legends
get
and
stuff.
lore on stage too, if
scheduled.
possible, and things like that. We should have. And then Alyssa, you should have at least one by yourself, mapping it out, seminars. And
Oh no, I don't do that with the plans. Oh no.
Oh, you
No,
don't?
no,
You don't?
No, I'm
you...
gonna do that with Jay and you, but I'm not gonna do that on my own. Oh no, no. I
Okay,
actually
then
I
you
do
love
more
one.
GMing. I do more
Okay.
GMing nowadays.
Ah, awesome. Yeah, but then we have a fantasy mapping show and Babel and
We're definitely gonna do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be awesome. So I'm gonna get with Josh Pop, and I'm gonna have Josh at the weekly GaryCon meeting state this is what we want to have happen. Whether we tie it in with what live stream it too at the same time, because they still haven't gotten to me with what they want me to do for all the Greyhawk content virtually like we did last year. So I'm waiting on that still. So got you, Calstaff, got you on the VIP. I'll get that. I may be able to get that as the show's on because of I'm just the behind the scenes guy for this one, so we're in good shape.
Until we
Excuse me.
The mech's coming, because then Jay takes center stage. That was so awesome with Jared Blando when he met.
Oh yeah, that was
it was
funny.
nice.
That was funny.
Yeah,
I'm probably gonna be very quiet tonight. No, I want
But
to
it-
learn tonight.
Yeah, but
Tonight's
it
more of
was
a learning for me.
Yeah, but it was so awesome to mention BattleTech and the whole
Yeah.
thing took
Oh,
off.
you mentioned BattleTech. How about my 5,000 miniatures?
Yes.
That was so awesome. That was like nerdiness, like
Nerd extreme.
Light bulbs turned on. Both Jay and Jared were like,
Yeah.
and the thing took off. Yeah.
He was actually a great guest, and we should
yes.
absolutely get him back on at some future point.
Yep. We find some other cool topic that I think would be perfect for it.
People are starting to crank in here. We're still at 12, 13 minutes before official start time. So, Anna, tomorrow night, Bill's having a little barbecue at his house, and Tim and his family's going, and my family's going, so I get to see a 90% done arena for the Grand Melee.
It's
Yes.
done. Is that meaning painted or
Matted, painted, yeah, he's just doing finishing touches on it, yes.
Wow.
So, yeah, and it's gonna blow away what the pictures are here on these screens when that
I think
arena
he
comes up.
kind of he pimped it with some.
Oh
some
yeah,
stuff,
it's gonna look
yeah.
awesome. Looking forward to that. So see that tomorrow night. I'll take some pics or something. Cause I'm not gonna have it hauled over here. Gonna roast some old miniatures there, Jason. That's cool.
I actually really like the painting too that was just on that video right there, with the bridge and the tower. That was nice painting on.
Yeah, there's some good,
Oh,
you know.
here's the pit.
Yeah, there's the pits. Yeah, can't wait to see it. So.
Yep.
That'll be a blast. Are you not entertained?
Yep.
So, yeah, Jason, that bridge rocks, and that bridge is probably. We gotta figure out how to get that printed because you know that's a 24/7 print job for weeks. So
You should build a kind of a cool landscape that the bridge makes sense. Have a tall bridge going from cliff face to cliff
Yeah.
face, so to speak,
the
rather
issue
than
is that
sloping down.
with the way my table is, you don't want to make it a fixed permanent fortification anywhere, right? So
No, but you have to make the you have end pieces that can
Right.
be like terrain with rock faces that the bridge can go over, so to speak. That would
absolutely.
Be, yeah.
Hey, Greg, good to see you. So, yeah, it's gonna be fun coming up. I got a new mill coming too. That thing's gonna look really cool. It was from Gamescape's Patreon, and that is here. We're gonna go to this one next here, and then people are starting to come on here. I think you know the community's still getting used to this time and place.
Yeah.
That's all right, man. That's all right. You know, playing and lurking is fine, man. You know, I'm fine with the lurk all day long.
Yeah. I have some ideas for the next coming shows too.
Oh, good.
Theme
Very
we
cool.
should add to, so we can talk about that afterwards.
Very
Yeah.
cool.
Yep.
Very cool.
What we can dig into now when we start to cover the very basics. There's 7 basics we should cover.
He's been on hard work. He's got a lot more of our Gamescape stuff coming.
Yeah,
lot
they
of
look
the-
fantastic.
A lot of the dungeon dressing.
Yeah, but I love that little village with those huts and stuff.
Yeah, and all the
Fantastic.
market stalls, all that. All this we have, almost all you see
Yeah.
there, he sent us, and it's all
Yeah.
painted.
Oh,
Most of
wow.
that is all painted up, yeah, so.
Oh, that is.
Yeah, so we got a bunch of new stuff coming. I think Anna's doing well there, Triano. So some
Coming on the show.
get some crew starting to show up. So and then there's our showpiece on our table right there, the ruined keep. That's all Bill's craft right there.
And that's been a centerpiece in several games.
Yeah, I got it for Strandkeep Castle from the Gord books, right? And I have it
Yeah.
for the Ruins of Wolfmaster Keep in the Lort Mills too. So both of those.
Is it one piece or can you move things around?
It is kind of one piece, but there's 4 levels. You can actually take that apart and see a lower level and an upper level of the buildings. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But you don't want to do that because it's hard to get back together. It's like 250 pieces.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, Biggie. Things are going well.
Yeah, I think we bring it back to great.
Lurk is the
Okay,
word.
I think-
Lurk is the word.
Yeah, I think we have to say thanks to Christoph and Greg online traveling. Yeah.
Yep. It's a team effort.
Yeah, work is the word. Yeah.
So, look at that. We still got 8 minutes, you know.
Oh yeah, we're early. Yeah.
That's okay. Early's not bad. So, believe it or not, Alyssa, I got my first piece of art. I've showed it on a couple, and it's on our T-shirts now that I actually commissioned professionally.
Yeah, that's a great piece.
Yeah, I'll show it. It's being framed now. Getting it custom framed.
Yeah, so
But-
you're an expert now. Now you can tell us all about how to commission stuff.
on
for
art
that episode.
one time, so I wouldn't call myself anywhere near an expert yet.
Well, you had wonderful results. So
Thanks.
I don't. Either was beginner's luck or very high skill. Yeah.
Who was the artist?
Carson Druitt, Carson Wong.
Okay.
He's on
Okay.
Twitch. He's got like 30,000 followers. So I'll show a picture.
Oof. Okay.
Yeah, I'll show a picture of it, and I'll also show the shirt that it's on and that we're selling for Virtual GrowCon. So. All right, tonight, everyone. Hey, Paul John's Life, good to see you. need a map. Now what? Good question. What do I do?
Yeah.
Who's in charge?
And I've actually been on both sides of this too, because I've actually commissioned a lot of stuff over the years. And I've had various results too. I've had quick ones, and I've had others just drop off the face of the earth too.
Yeah, and there's been several times I've asked, that's why I came up with the headline, because I've asked about that. I need a map for the next set. What the hell am I supposed to do? And then I was like, okay. So I've been in that bind too. I haven't actually commissioned anything for my own use because I haven't published anything. So it's only been for my own use, so to speak. So.
Oh, my husband and I went nuts years ago, even with unpublished stuff, which just like getting characters and stuff done for games.
Yeah.
And occasionally, like, he runs a shadow run, and this cool scene will happen, so we'll go up and commission a piece of art for it, just to capture that moment. So not everything that we do gets published.
No, and it was very different before when you could Google stuff when the internet wasn't around. You could go to the library. You either had to draw it yourself, you had to find someone to draw it for you.
Well, and then you'd get like Dragon Magazine or something, there'd be someone with the little ads in the back.
Yeah, and it was hard to scan because even that was 25, 30 years ago. It was almost impossible to use a computer to scan it.
One of my saddest moments actually was back in England about 30, 40 years back, and obviously well before the internet and all the rest of it. And there was a guy advertising his artistic talents at a local game store, and he was good, like he was really top tier. And so we got him over to the house during one of our sessions. We explained our characters to him, and we were all going to commission our characters getting done. And he started sketching them as we were drawing, and God damn, this guy had talent. I just wanted to murder someone. He was that good. And like he went and the sketches, like just the sketches as he was doing it in front of us were so good. We were just sitting there saying, oh no, we'll take them now, we'll buy them now. And it was like, let him take me, I'll take them away, I'm going to ink them in, get them ready, I'll come back. And we never heard from him again. And we were like, oh, but they were so good. We were to this day. That
is terrible.
It was crushing. And he was so good, and he really got the characters so on it. And we never heard from him again. It was so sad. And he never got paid. It's like
I mean, he was that's double whammy, both for you and for him. So and I remember back in the day from Dragon and other sources, and I took like thin paper and traced off dungeons and from tourist maps, and I went to Greece for the first time, and I saw these kind of cool stuff. So I basically literally took my camera and just took a picture, and then I went and used that and traced the picture from the paper fake picture that I got back from the lab, and traced it onto paper and redraw it and use the dungeons and castle designs and stuff. That was how you had to do it in the 80s. The internet. Oh yeah. There were a lot of stuff that younger people don't even realize what horrible hurdles we had to go through.
Set up a little light box and things like that, so you
And the maps had to be basically, well, like show the first time you pencil in stuff and you just work and that's when the days when we had our old ordnance map and stuff, that looking maps and stuff. It's much easier now in a way, but on the other hand, now you have all the options. You feel like the results need to be wonderful all the time. Back then, any scribble would do, so to speak.
No, well, I don't know about you, but from my group, I actually feel a huge amount of pressure because they know I'm a professional cartographer.
Yeah.
And I feel like I can't just like knock something out that will just be functional. If it's going in front of players, it has to be top tier. And so...
That is pressure.
Yeah,
that is pressure.
I feed my players crap all the time just to get them used to the fact that they will not get top-notch maps.
On the flip side, though, if one of them is GMing and he's drawing the map on the table, on the vinyl, and I'm sitting there, and they can feel the pressure of my disapproving look.
Yes, they the always comment like, "Don't look at this map, and it's crappy and whatnot." So,
Hopefully everyone's well tonight as we're talking behind the scenes here about some interesting things. I'm J.K. Lord Gosumba, and we have Anna Meyer and Alyssa Faden again. 4th episode, Fantasy Mapping Show. No guest tonight because we're going on a little different tangent tonight. I need a map, now what? I mean, that's perfect. I mean, I've been saying that for 40 years.
Yeah, seriously, I think every DM says that and I've done it, and Alyssa, we've all been there. Is when we run games and do our preps and stuff like that, we feel like we need a map, so to speak. That every DM has been there many times. Yeah.
And it's a great question. So, Alyssa, you said you're on both sides of the spectrum on this. So you want to elaborate a little bit on that? We're talking behind the scenes.
Well, from the point of view that, even with artwork, general artwork or maps, even to this day, to be honest with you, and we're going to get into some detail on this later on. But I mean, obviously, I draw maps professionally, just like Anna does. So I've been on that side. I've been on the side of contracts and talking about project and project details and scoping it out and costing it out. I've been on that side, but I've also been on the other side because I'm a GM, where I will be sitting there regularly going, okay, so I need a map. Now what? And that's, where do I go from here? Am I doing it myself? Am I finding something that's out there on the webinets and just leveraging that? Or am I going off to get a commission done? So, and when it comes to more traditional artwork, I've definitely got a lot of that commission. I actually did something recently for a game. I was like, I need some artwork for this. I contacted Dan Smith, and I was like, he actually did something for me. So I've been on that side as well.
Yeah, I've been semi on that for my Shieldlands campaign. I commissioned a friend in Sweden to do some creature art and stuff like that too. So that is coming. So that I hope it could be useful. But even my patrons will be given it when it's done too, and I've used it. And also for D&D in a castle, I want to have some custom monster designs and stuff like that to go with it. So, and I'm not that particularly good with scribbling stuff like that. So yeah.
So please note, we'll take a lot of questions tonight on this, because that's what this is all about. All right, So hey, Megan, good to see you. So yeah, and welcome. Thank you all. I know people are still getting used, because it's not a weekly show, so it's once a month. So people will be rolling in here, I guarantee, soon. So a couple things. First things first, the giveaway tonight. Frog God Games has been like the official sponsor out of all sponsors we have for the Fantasy Mapping Show. And let me hit this up here. We have a Biggie, thank you for that host there. So let me just set this up here. They're going to give away a $25 gift certificate to their store, which is awesome. And then I'm going to show you like a pile here that I have really quick, and that should have worked. Hopefully that'll work up there. Okay.
Oh, you have some wrong buttons to press.
Yeah, I always do. So here's a pile of my current frog, and this is not any Necromancer game stuff. This is all Frog Guide, because they have swords and wizardry, which is old school. So I'm getting there. I mean, look at the size of that blight book.
Is that giveaways?
Oh, this is my personal stuff.
Oh, okay.
Look at that blight book right there.
Yeah,
what is that? Like
this
is thick?
What kind of Bible is that?
This is the entire Blight series of adventures. Yeah. So
wow.
It's got it's only 800 some pages. So but there's some great opportunity. Now this is probably more than the $25, but there's some great things on there that you can get started with that $25 gift certificate. And note this, we have at least $200 of giveaways coming during Virtual GrowdCon from Frog Games during the live streams. So you're going to see a lot of content from them, and then you can get really cool like source books. Here's one, Cat's Cradle, which is a small town, a town source book. I mean, look, and that's just nice and small there. And this one, it's got colored. This map looks familiar in here. Is that who's that?
Oh, I wonder who did that.
I wonder who did that.
Cat's Cradle. Yeah. And actually, fun fact, I think Cat's Cradle has actually got my husband's one of his first writing credits in there.
Oh, let me see here.
I think Cat's Cradle. Yeah, Jackal. Which is an awesome name, by the way. Jackal. Or mystical.
Yeah, it's so cool.
I'm looking here.
Yeah, he did a huge amount of writing.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
And
like all of the NPCs in it, but I think he wrote.
Well, it's a great book.
He's a big NPC guy.
Yeah, I mean.
So go off and get that.
Yeah.
So go off and buy that.
My guess is that you can get this easily for the $25 with a bunch of other things too. And there's 5e and Sword and Wizardry and Pathfinder versions. Now they may not all be available in hard copy, but they're available. There's PDFs of it too. You can get both. So just wanted to show if you're into Pirates, Razor Coast stuff. which they have some neat things. So yes,
Or save the $25 and get Necropolis when it comes out, because that will be soon.
yes. And let me see if this works here. Because where's the shout out? Shout out. There you go. That should be the Necropolis Kickstarter right there. So I've linked that in stream chat, and that should still work to the Necropolis Kickstarter. I did back that. I also backed the Rapinathic miniatures. Dale, did you do that as well? As sure, I did. I backed it fully for the because the Rapinathic miniatures look really awesome. So I wanted to get them and more stuff for Build a Paint. Okay, so thank you, Frog God, for that. And so. I, for the first time in my life, commissioned an artist, and I've showed this a couple times. I don't think Alyssa saw it. I'm going to flip it up real quick, and then just go. Well, this is
a great start of the show. Yeah.
Step number one is I got this. I got actual content for the first time in my life from an artist, and now I know. Now I can appreciate how wonderful artistry artwork is here to get done. And here, so this is it being matted and set up. I'm just gonna throw it right up on here on the screen and cover my face. This is the Return to the Moat House. This is by Carson Wong, and so I'm getting it all matted and custom framed. And I figured I'd snap a picture of that as it was going. And then we took that, and Anna helped me edit this and put this into the Return to the Moat House T-shirts for GreyHawkCon with the old school Hamlet look, right, and that pinkish color. So so we have them. So that's all I've ever done with a professional artist in my life. We all know I have a map.
Exactly. I helped you with that. Yep.
Yes, absolutely. I have a map of my city in Greyhawk that's actually on Anna's map. It's actually in almost semi-published source right now at this point. It's in Cannon Fire.
It's up to you if you want to publish it now. So
exactly.
So it's your version of Greyhawk maps. Yep.
Here's my map. I have a map. Now what?
Yeah.
Right? So let's figure out what I should do. What are some suggestions for me or for in general? So
you basically have three main ways of doing it, so to speak. You can either just Google city map bits and put it together and just use other pieces of whatever cool looking map you can find on the internet. That doesn't cost anything, and you can just use if you want to do it real quick and don't spend any money on it, you can just do it. And if you have a little bit of skill, you can just copy and paste pieces, so to speak, and just use that. That is as an inspiration. That doesn't cost much, and you can use it, especially if you only want to use it as a DM kind of map for your own notes, so to speak, and then scribble it down on simple VTT or just if you don't want to have a fancy presentation. Meaning, if you wanted to, meaning if you have miniatures like you have a terrain, you might only want a reference map to place to tell you which house to place where, so to speak, and then just Google something that looks cool in your eyes and just go with it. That's the cheap and dirty option, but that's also kind of boring. Exactly. It's the quick and dirty option. If you don't have a big budget and you don't have time, that's the quick way of getting at least something barely functional.
And if your specifics, if your need is pretty loose,
exactly, just a generic,
you just need a city or something, a dungeon to take your players through.
Yeah.
But then, if you have more of a specific need, what's the next option, Anna?
Yep.
Right.
The next option is to make it yourself, and that's something we can dedicate 10 different shows in the future about, so to speak. But we need to mention it. That's something, but that takes. That can save you money, but it will take a lot of time to find the right tool and to learn it.
I've been messing with Incarnate, and I've learned one thing. I'm not very good at it.
Exactly. It takes months to hone that skill.
And you know how much limited time I have as it is.
Exactly. Yeah. So time, if you want something done quickly, then what you do is that you commission someone else to do it. And then there's kind of tiers in commissioning too, because in the way you can see, you can find the artist or cartographer or something that has the style you like and the specialization you like. Meaning, like if you're into Greyhawk maps, then I'm the person, so to speak. And that's why 300 people are giving me money every month. So they are kind of group commissioning me to do more Greyhawk maps. But sometimes you want to go beyond that. You want a map for your game that is unique to you. And as a DM, so to speak, it's your village, your town, your inn, your evil lair, or whatever it is you want to have. Meaning, you needs to find fill your specific needs, and that's when you come to the ultimate conclusion. You need to get someone else to do it for you only, so to speak, and that's when you come into commission.
And
Yeah,
I think that's where I am for
yeah,
2022 or whenever at this point. But I just wanted to hear. You got to go through steps. Everyone
yep.
yourself. I don't like half-assing anything. For me
Yeah,
to pull, oh yeah, I'll use this map off of the internet. No, yeah, I can't.
no.
I can't do that. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and especially if you stream a game, then
Hey, Carman.
that option runs out the door more quickly, because then copyright issues come into play,
Absolutely.
and other stuff. If you're streaming it, you're publishing it and
Absolutely.
stuff like that, then all that comes in, and that's another big reason to either do it yourself or commission someone to do it.
So Alyssa, your thoughts on initial process here? I mean,
Yeah.
Anna sounds like she got it pretty good there, but do you have any suggestions in that process early
Well,
on?
you know, Anna did sort of nail it all. I mean, and it's, you know, at the end of the day, if it's just something down and dirty that you need, go off onto the webinet or back someone on Patreon, and you know they're likely going to bury you in maps that you can use for something. But if it starts to edge towards something that you need some specifics on, and I'll pick on my husband's sort of game setting where we had a city called Hubtown, and it had a very specific shape, a very specific layout. And so he was like, will you draw me a map, please? And so that's kind of what we're talking about. It's like, whether it's just for your personal use, but it's got a specific need, or you're going to be streaming it, therefore getting into a little bit of copyright territory, or maybe you're even going to publish this thing and have illusions of publishing it for the future. I say illusions, that's negative. I mean, illusions of using it in the future, like in a public space.
Determined to publish it in the future. Plans. Yeah.
Then at that point, you've got to find someone to do it for you. And I think our first subject then on this particular point, Anna, would be, where do you find the talent? Assuming that you're not married to it, where do you go?
Well, yeah, then I guess to go to Patreon or some site like that, and or Google fantasy maps and see what you get for styles. You can go to Cartography Guild. On the hang on a second, I need to get the
like the
URL.
Cartographer's Guild. I think it's literally Cartographer's Guild.
Yeah, Cartographer's Guild.
I'm going to switch over to scene 4, and I got the Cartographer's Guild.
Perfect.
Here. Look at that. Maps. They actually follow me for some bizarre reason.
Yep. So there's a great site with lots of cartographers. They have a special thread. You can just register for free on the forum, and there's a special thread where you can say, I want to have this map done, and cartographers can look in there and say, I'm willing to start thinking about it, and then you can go in to start a dialogue, so to speak. So that is a great place to find lots of. I was very active there like 10 years ago, and then there was a rabbit hole because they had these wonderful challenges every month, and I started going in for them so hard, and I won 2, and I realized that this is taking so much time, so I was like, no. I kind of backed out because it was such an awesome site with so many cool things that it took so much time away from.
Yeah, they have annual contests.
They have lots
categories,
of,
right?
Yep, fantastic contests, and it's well run. It's been for over 10 years now, and it's a great site for stuff. And they have how-tos and various cartographers present their stuff. I haven't looked at it as much as I should lately, but it's a great place to find talent.
Okay, very good suggestion. Any like favorites that you think of right off the top of your head and we're talking in the fantasy genre setting, indoor, outdoor, dungeon, like is there a go-to, or is there like, this person I know is good, reasonable, this person's fantastic, but it's a 2-year wait list?
Look at what they're doing. If an artist is, if you see tons and tons of fantastic dungeon maps from that cartographer or artist, that means that if you're going for I want a jungle map or a map on my kingdom, it might not be the person to go to. So try to see some artists or cartographers and artists are very flexible. They can do all sorts of different styles. Others are they nail down one style, so to speak. So if you think that it's something that you want, then go for make sure you at least ask for something that you know they have done, so to speak, something similar. Otherwise it might be difficult for them to have to say no, so to speak. It's okay if you approach people that are professional about it, because we get all sorts of proposals and we are good at saying no, but if you approach others, that might be tricky. So yeah.
I think that's a fair point, though, Anna. Yeah, and there's other sources too. Just obviously, there's all social media. DeviantArt, I find, is another good one to follow people on.
Yeah.
I found lots of people on DeviantArt hunting for commissions for myself, and I think all of them, regardless of where you go, look at what they're doing, look at their style. And like you're going to see maps or traditional artwork that you fall in love with, because some people are incredibly gifted. But ask yourself the honest question of, is this the subject matter I want, to Anna's point? And is this really the style I want? Because a map may look amazing, truly amazing. But if you're then going for something that is a dungeon map and this person is doing a lot of region maps, well, there's a disconnect there straight away. And just because you love this style, and there's nothing wrong with that, don't then automatically assume that they could do any style and any subject matter. So keep a clear mind on that one and make sure that you're looking at someone that's going to be a good fit for you.
Yep. And then I think the next very, very big question is asking yourself, what do you really want? That's the thing, because if you don't expect whoever you approach to tell you what you want, you need to have an idea of what you want. The problem with it is that you can't be too rigid, meaning it needs to have structure and content and stuff like that, but you can't nail down everything, so to speak. So that's the balancing act, being you have to give them whoever, and now we come into the next topic, but you have to, before you even approach someone, you have to have an idea what you want, but you also have to have an open mind and realize it will become a dialogue with whoever you approach. And that is a very delicate thing to learn, so to speak. So expect a dialogue, but also expect that person to, especially if it's me you approach, to come with a barrage of questions.
Well, let's spend 5 minutes on this, because this is the very valid point that you're raising, Anna. Prepare in advance. Let's say, for the sake of argument, you've got 3 people that you want to hit up, that you really love all of their work, but it doesn't really matter even if it's 1 or 21. What is it you want? Now, and I'm going to give you an example. And all of my examples, by the way, I give today are real world examples, but I'm going to obfuscate them a little bit so no one gets embarrassed. Don't go to someone and say, I want a medieval map of Pluto, because that makes no sense. There's more questions that I am going to have on my side than you have even put on the table at this point. So honestly, sit back and write down, and honestly, it shouldn't be more than a paragraph, and probably it should just be a few sentences. What is it that you are after? And it may be a dungeon map, it may be a city map, it may be a region map, but you should be able to describe it. You should be able to visualize it, because if you're already approaching someone, then you have a specific vision in mind. You may not know how it's going to come out, and it's going to be a collaboration process, but you need to be able, I call it the elevator speech version. You need to be able to articulate at least what it is and the size of it, for example. Because if I went to Anna and I said, Anna, I need a map of a country, please. I've given her nothing. Okay, she knows it's a country.
Oh yeah, but it can be Monaco, or it can be China, so to speak, in size. So yeah.
And yeah, exactly. Is she drawing this thing 4 inches by 4 inches, 82 inches by 82?
Yes.
Like, what style are we talking about here? Are we talking about like sort of the semi-isometric Lord of the Rings style? Are we talking top down? Are we talking about computer graphics? You need to be able to write some bullet points down of, this is what I'm after. Because when you go to someone like Anna, she's going to ask, and she's not going to be able to give you any details until you at least get these bare basics down.
Yeah.
Anna, do you want to elaborate?
Oh, yeah, because you mentioned something really important that I think is a very important bit by itself. It's that the end purpose, meaning, is this a map that you're going to use in a VTT and that's it, so to speak, for your own private games? Or is this something that is going to be published in a book? Is it something that's going to be potentially printed on a big poster map or something like that? So the end use of whatever comes out of it, so to speak, of the image, that is a very important, meaning that sets the resolution, the amount of detail needed, the graphic formats and stuff like that, and things that need to be taken into account before you start. And that sets a big, if it's something that just needs to be cheap graphics to put on a VTT, not that particularly, but if it's going to be printed on a 40 by 60 inch poster map, it needs to be way bigger in scope and resolution and stuff, and the price might be 5 times higher just to accommodate that big publishing size. And also, don't be afraid of having to go through this, because there are publishers that approach me and had no clue of what they want really that way. They say, oh, we want this cool map kind of thing, and we probably want it in a book. And yeah, then after 2 weeks into the well, we probably wanted poster map too. Can we have that too? And then I think we could we just have it in black and white and color and whatever, and they kind of add on the things down the line. And that's the other thing, is that you need to figure out, where do you want this, so to speak? And that is something that you need to have nailed down when you approach. So your end product, both the physical product or the digital product, and the potential use of it, so to speak, down the line, especially if you're a fledgling DM who publish things on the internet and you realize, now I want to do a cool PDF series of this, or I want to have it possible of posting it as a poster, printing it as a poster in the future. So these are things that need to be taken into design. It doesn't make things automatically 3 times more expensive or whatever, but it's something that needs to be taken into account when you start making a project.
So here's my layman's question back to both of you. Is it better for someone maybe to start out with a small project or 2 and get them developed first, and then get a feel for what they actually want? Like for me, should I get maybe, a keep map done or a small village map done first, and then go for the larger project, instead of going toward the larger project right at the beginning, because I don't know what I'm doing, as an example?
Lisa, do you want to tackle it first? Yep.
Yeah, and I'm going to maybe be a little bit controversial on this.
Okay.
Because I almost want to say, in a sense, it doesn't matter, but in a way it does. But there's a certain amount of onus and responsibility on both sides. And here's why. Because from your side, Gosumba, you could go all in. You could go all in with a plethora of different maps and, big maps, big setting, and so on and so forth. But your responsibility is one of, then you've got to be there to be able to describe what you're after, constantly be in touch with the artist that's working on this, or group of artists that are working on this, to ensure that everything is on track and that they, hitting your vision for it. If you're not, then things are going to start to run to risk. It's a bigger budget that you're going to be obviously dealing with, and there's going to be risk because of it. And the more people you involve, that's going to obviously have risk. But I also think that the biggest risk there is who you are working with. It would be one thing to go to Anna and say, Anna, will you do me 30 maps? Now, she's probably going to say, oh, what? Maybe in 3 years' time. But, in this fictional sort of world, Anna, you could trust. Anna is a professional. Anna has a long reputation of being trustworthy in delivering. Now, if you found some random schmo on DeviantArt that you have no relationship with, then yes, doing bite-sized commissions, warming up the relationship. I've actually done that. I've done that with colorists. I brought them on board. I want to test them out. I want to gauge how we're working together, and make sure we've got the payment thing going down. And when we have that relationship, I start to ramp it up somewhat. So I think it really depends on who you're working with. And yourself, your own bandwidth and capability to keep up with it.
Yeah, I think that's really wise. There's one other thing I want to to add to it. I think is important is if you intend it to be a bigger project in the end, or you desire, let's say you want the whole country, and you want a country with like 3 cities and a couple of other locations, and that's the ultimate goal. I want to map my kingdom with the big cities and a few other castles and dungeons and stuff. Then I think you should convey what the ultimate goal is, meaning I would love to, this is the whole idea, not right away, and then you should zero in on, say, okay, let's start with this castle map and the accompanying dungeon under it, so to speak, as a first project. But I would love to, if someone approached me and say, but my ultimate goal is to map the whole kingdom, because what I can do is that make sure that, especially in my process, is that when I map it, I can place it in roughly a location so it's already prepped to be inserted into a bigger setting. So you kind of prepared to take the future steps. And I think that's really good ways. So mention what the ultimate goals are, both how you want to publish it, but also say that I would love to have the rest of the kingdom mapped and the area and the big city and stuff down the line, so to speak. And you can kind of make plans. And there comes the other big that I've seen a couple of people mention in chat that is really important: time. When the time frame for a project. That's the most times I say no, it's because I can't make it that quickly. There are many publishers who approach me, and I've happened 4 or 5 times the last 5 years, approached me and say, oh, can you make this map in like a month or 2? And I wouldn't even be able to research in that time, so to speak. And on my pipeline now, I'm busy until like May next year. So before May next year, I can't even take on the project. And so that is something that, and I'm probably not the only one, especially if you're established professional artist or something, you have a pipeline of 6 to 8 months often. And I bet that a lot of really big ones. And one of the reasons for that is not that we sit and have every day lined out and we have 40 hours of work or more per week, but I know that I keep small openings because I have customers like Kobo Press and others that I know will bring me a project now and then and say that, oh, we need to change this and fix this for a VDT or whatever. Things like that pops in every 6 to 8 weeks. So I keep occasional weeks open simply because of it. And if they're not filled up by a customer or something like that, I sit and do more Greyhawk maps. That's why I love to have Patreon as a filler for stuff like that. But but you have to respect that pipelines. That's why taking artists that you can find on DeviantArt art or something, because there's a lot of artists that would love to have a commission and they could start working on it instantly and love to do it. So and they are in many ways as talented as I am or Alyssa or anyone else, so to speak. So talent and how busy you are, unfortunately, doesn't always add up.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. I would to expound upon that a little bit, because this almost goes back. This has a toe in the waters of preparing your elevator speech for what you want. It's absolutely related. Mm-hmm. When you do approach someone, assume that they have other things going on. You know, and as Anna indicated, she's booked out into the middle of next year. So am I. Jared, that we had on the last show, he is too, I guarantee it. Mm-hmm. And just assume that most people have got something going on. Don't go to someone like with I need it now and you've got nothing else happening, because odds on you're going to be disappointing. And honestly, if I'm going to be really candid, it's a little disrespectful. It's not professional, okay? So I would approach them with are you available for commissions? Some aren't, just period, okay? Are you available for commissions? Do you have a sense of when you would be available? By the way, Anna right now would want to know what you're talking about. That's where your elevator speech comes in. She's going to need to know what you're dealing with, because she's right. I'm booked out until June of next year, solidly. But if someone comes to me and says, hey, can you draw me some dungeon maps? And they're going to go on some dice that we're doing, you know, they're going to be dead simple. And they give me a project spec, I could sit there and go, I can squeeze that in. Mm-hmm. But unless you're prepared for Anna to understand what you're asking for, she can't make that judgment call, right? And so now the kind of conversation is just at a loggerheads. So assume that people are busy, at least for a few months. If they're not, kudos, great, right? It's good for you, but plan out at least 2 or 3 months. See if they're available for commissions, because they might not be. Be prepared to give them enough information so they can understand how much time they're going to need to dedicate to it, and if they can squeeze it in, because even if they are booked up, they might be able to get you in the slot, just like Anna was saying. That's why you need to know upfront what you actually want this person to do for you.
And secret weapon in that is that if you send the elevator pitch right away, if I see a pitch that is well phrased, someone who knows what they want exactly, and they have an idea, and they can send me a really good pitch and saying, and we have all this information available if you want to and stuff. If someone realized that, then I'm so eager to work with them that I might work extra 10 hours for 4 weeks straight just to squeeze that in, because so to get the right research, and the meaning, if I can get the right information out of someone, that would make me want to work with them. That is to me as important as money. In some
no,
ways,
you're 100%, Anna. You're 100% right.
Yeah, I've said no to way more offers of commissions due to lack of information than lack of money. Way more.
Having both sides be clear and professional on communication is honestly one of the key elements here. And it started very early on in what Anna and I are talking about. You knowing what you want and being able to communicate that immediately gets whatever artist, and it doesn't have to just be a cartographer, almost on your side. It's like this person knows what they want. They know how to communicate it. I don't have to now go digging it. If I have to dig it now, like I want a medieval map of Pluto, if I have to start digging into this now, then what is this entire thing going to be like? This is just going to be painful for me. No, I can't do it. That's what you're dealing with.
Yeah, and I have one perfect example of two that was really good proposals, and I had Hans Cummings was one that he made some awesome books and stuff. He'd written books. He was kind of just a little bit vague, just very polite, asking me, send me an email, can you ask, and send me some links to who he was, so to speak, and just asked very politely, are you open for commission? That was how it started. And then after that, he sent me I think it was like a 2 or 3 pages of PDF with inspirational stuff, the map he had, ideas and inspirational stuff. And that brief was so good, so I just said, yes, I'm going to do it right away, just because it was so good. We hadn't discussed price, and I was like, whatever, that came later. But I basically say, yes, I want to do it, because that's the thing, you need to want the artist to do it, kind of cool thing, and so on. So but it doesn't need, and a lot of people realize it doesn't need to look graphically good. Something's drawn on some inspirational text, some desires and ideas, meaning I want to hear that someone can think inspirationally about it and inspire me to want to do it. That's the key. And then have some napkin drawing scribbles on a napkin that they take a picture of.
We could do an example of that, Anna. I mean, bring up, if you can, Gosumba, the example description labeled map legend. There's a label for you. Because this is exactly the type of napkin sort of thing that you're talking about. Where someone asked me for, not that one, I mean, someone did ask me for that one, but this one right here. I mean, this is the napkin sketch that Anna's talking about. They said this pretty early on in the conversation. It's like, we're after a city. It's shaped like this. We want it to be a full page spread. In fact, I think they said it was a double page spread, this one. These are the key POIs that I need. By the way, not many people approach me and say, these are the POIs that I want. This is a company that knows upfront exactly the city that they want, exactly the size. They told me the population size. They already knew which POIs I would have to capture and where roughly everything else would exist. I said yes to these guys because they were so organized. And this is what they sent me. It's just a napkin sketch, like Anna said. but you're taking the guesswork out of this. I don't have to extract it from you now, which takes time.
And all this initial discussion is very important, because then we come into the other one of the other serious topics once you've had the basic conversation, and that's the unfortunate part of the price, so to speak. That the two major, there are three major hiccups. One is the information bit, and the second is time, and the third is money. Meaning that's the big hiccups on a project, so to speak. So yeah.
No, 100% related to that. I mean, this all kind of snowballs forward. How many times, Anna, have you had someone approach you and say something along the lines of, I'm going to use a city map as an example for myself. Hey, Alyssa, will you draw me a city? How much will it cost?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I have no details. I have no details in there. I don't know what style you want. I don't know how big it is. I don't know if you're doing a single page, double page, or any other variation thereof. I don't know how much labor you want me to put into the details. I don't know if you want it black and white or color. So I'm going to give you a range of $400 to thousands and thousands, because you've given me nothing else to go off there.
And that's the thing. And I do exactly the same. But what I do is that most of my projects are within the range of $2,000 to $5,000. So that's the answer I will get. And meaning and also I set on a very high initial price, because if they have that idea of money is the essential bit, and they are not willing to inspire me right away, then it's something that, okay, it might be a lucrative thing. So I give them a high initial price just to make sure that at least I can get the money from it, so to speak, if the discussion continues.
But I guess at this particular stage of the conversation, it's really, if you are approaching someone for a commission, and you don't give them enough information up front, what you're going to get back is, let's say from Anna, I don't know, $2,000 to $5,000. And that's not going to help you budget your Kickstarter or anything else, right? Now, if you went to Anna and said, actually, I just need a quarter page thing. It's going to be like a couple of 100 miles across, and it's got one city in the middle of it. Anna's probably going to look at that and go, well, it might take me 4 hours to do. So, and her reaction is going to be completely different. You've got to be able to at least give some information up front.
Yeah, and I think that goes with most artists, so to speak. If you can inspire them, give them something to get their mind going right away, so to speak. At least then you can get a very honest answer, and half of the budget discussion is done already with a good brief, and you had that initial, rather than just jump on initial right away, just saying that, oh, how much money do you want for it? So before my minimum was 1,000. Now I'm often up to 2,000 for minimum for projects that I have no clue of, so to speak.
Exactly. Before we move the conversation too far on, and I don't want people to be intimidated by this, but I had a particularly effective communication sent to me just this week. And Gosumba, if you could bring up the example description Riverton pitch. This is a real life pitch that someone has sent me, and it's actually got a few pages in it. Now, normally I don't want to read multiple pages. Please don't send me your manuscript. I'm not going to try and deduce from your
someone
manuscript.
Who said, an author, I'm not going to mention name, who said, oh, can you map the world I'm using for my books? And I said, sure, we can start talking about it. And I said, oh, I can just send you was it like 7 or 8 books or something? And I checked on Amazon, and it was like 2,500 pages. And I sent back and say, it will take me 3 months to read that, and I want $2,000 just to do it, just to read all your books. And
that's a fair response.
And I never heard back from him again.
Well, of course you wouldn't. Don't be that client. Don't be that client. Anna does not want to sit there reading tomes and tomes and tomes of information, 99% of which is going to be irrelevant to the project at hand. You haven't effectively communicated. Or if you're going to ask Anna to do this, so she can deduce
I might be more finicky than a lot of other artists and stuff, so I shouldn't be scared. You might find someone who would love to read your books and make it. So I'm just speaking for myself here.
No, but it's fair across the board, just because it's a pet peeve of mine. Don't freaking send your artist a tome to read, when really at the end of the day, less than a paragraph is going to describe the project. Just don't do it. It's a waste of their time. It just is. It's not respectful. Or pay him for it.
Mm-hmm.
This Riverton thing that I got sent this week, and Gosumba, I don't know if you're capable of scrolling through it.
Sure.
It wasn't actually that long. The client apologized for sending this. Basically, it put a huge amount of work into it. Mark, thank you very much. And he described what the project was going to be. And I think around the second page, if you go down, I think it's the second page, it actually gets into the first city map that he's got. This is basically what he wants, and it's going to be based on Venice. The minute I saw this, I was like, okay, this is a client that actually understands visually what he's after. And then if you scroll to page 3, he kind of explains a little bit, yeah, like that, but more like this. It's going to be bigger. And so this is a guy that has a true vision. He's been able to explain his project, the size of this thing. And he actually, in email too, he was like, I'm kickstarting this next year. I would need it finished by this point in time. Great. I understand your schedule. I understand if I can do it. You've already told me you want a big map of Venice, so I can understand that. He's told me the style that he wants this done in, so I can understand the type of approach I'm going to make, take on this. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I was like, oh, hell yes. I was able to give him a good quote. He actually increased my quote and said, I'll do this as a stretch goal. And then maybe we'll do this if I don't hit the stretch goal. This is an organized person.
Yep.
This is a person that has a schedule, a vision, and a stretch goal in mind. He understands budgets and everything and schedule. And I'm like, yeah, I'm on board. I'm excited.
So this is a Kickstarter.
I think he's he's kickstarting this next year. It's going to be a 5e game called Polite Society or something. And I mean, if we end up doing it together, I'm going to stream this thing because it's going to be a hell of amount of fun.
Yeah.
But the point is, he really gave me a great brief.
Yep. I mean, exactly, and that inspires you to. It's something you want to work on because it sounds like a very interesting project by someone, and that the chemistry of how, if you can be inspired by each other and you can kind of work together and you get that, and that's something that at least I feel something I can feel very early if I get it or not, so to speak. And that is something. And now it comes to something that is a very difficult topic, and one of the main reasons that I get hired, and Alyssa and other artists gets hired, is that we get hired by people who write stuff. Basically, because who can't draw that much. There's some multi-talented people in the RPG industry that can do everything, do their art and do their writing or whatever. But
I hate them.
No, but I wish I was that kind of person. But so and that's one thing that I think I need to, as an artist or cartographer, we need to understand that they hire us just because they can't do what we can't do. So that's one of the things that so one of the I think really responsible things to do as an artist is to try and pick the brain of the person or the publisher who's, or brains, depending on if it's one or several people, to get to what they want, because often they don't have really the vocabulary or the visual thinking in order to ask what they want. So often what you can do is if you, especially if you're given a good brief like this, you can sketch down or give them some examples and say, is this what you're after? Or is this the style or something? And all of a sudden, yes, we want to look at like, oh, but often you say, no, that's not what you want, because they don't know what they want. But if you show them something, they can tell you right away, we don't want that, so to speak. So that's the other thing, is that they communicate to you in verbal or writing, and you communicate back in verbal and drawing and visual stuff that a lot of people can't express themselves visually, but they still have very firm opinions if they like it or not, which is good. And that's something that I've learned to not only respect but actually like, because that's how I make my money. If everybody had my idea of and nerdiness about maps, I would be out of a job. So it's kind of good that people don't think as much about maps that I do, and I have to respect that, so to speak, and I can thrive on it. But I also have to understand it, that and I think that every artist out there who wants to make money doing it realize that it's the customer's needs and the customer's desires that are essential when you do commission map. If you just do maps for your own game, then it's the way you want, or the highway, so to speak. But as soon as you start asking for someone else's money when you do it, it's their style. If they want to have pink banners and stuff, then it's pink banners. But you might tweak the pinkiness a little bit and stuff and so on, and ask them twice if it's something that you think is horrible, like, do you really want this? Or send a quick and dirty version and with pink stuff if they ask for it, and then they will say no, and then you can get rid of the pink ones, and overdo the pinkiness and then send them a pinky thing that looks so pink that it's kind of crazy or overboard, and so you can tweak it. But the important thing is respect the client to some degree and realize it's their will that pays the bills, so to speak. So,
well, and you're raising a couple of points now, Anna, and they're all valid, because we're going to talk about commission rates. We're going to talk about money as part of it. Yes. We're going to talk about contracts, and we're going to talk about, okay, so now this person's working on your project. How do you ensure that they're actually going to come up with like what you need them to do, because you're paying for it now. But before we get into those conversations, Anna raised a couple of very valid points from the point of view of not only what they're going to give back, but how now is your artist or cartographer communicating back with you? You've approached them, you've asked them if they're available for commissions, you've told them what you're after, and let's assume that they're on board. The conversation is going to advance. It's going to advance into one of budgets, and it's going to advance into one of contracts, and it's going to get into the work itself. But I want to just underscore for a moment, if you approached Anna, actually Anna would be a very, very bad example because she would never respond this way. So I'm going to call her B Anna. If you approached B Anna and said, hey, can you draw me a region map? And B Anna responded with, yeah, no problem, $2,000. You haven't actually told her anything. You haven't told her anything about what your needs are. She hasn't asked you. I would say that's a red flag. Just be careful, okay? Especially if you're hitting up people on DeviantArt and the Cartographers Guild. When you go to them, how they respond to you. And I'm not just talking about, yes, of course I'll do it for you, Kermit Flail. I mean, that's great. And everyone's excited and you want to get your city drawn or your region drawn or whatever.
Kermit Flail, that's funny.
What they actually send back to you as a response, like, should be a flag as to whether this is going to be successful or not. And I'll give an example. Like if I approach someone to do some character art for me, and I mean, I've been in the business a long time, so I'm going to tell them what size they need. I'm going to tell them I need it color or not. I already know that their style fits. And, you know, and I'll tell them pretty much when I need it by, and odds on it's like whenever. So I give them a lot of information. If I didn't give them that information and they're just like, sure, then I'm not going to get exactly what I need that out of the gate. If they responded, yes, I can do this. Tell me a little bit more about your character and their visuals. Tell me a little bit more about, I'm probably going to do a sketch up front and send it to you. This is a person who's a pro. They understand it. And I'm going to, every single question they throw back at me is a sign that it's going to get closer and closer to my vision. And I'm sure Gosumba didn't just get some like schmo with 30,000 followers on Twitch and say, hey, will you draw me a keep, please, with some people fighting in front of it? Yeah. I'm sure that the conversation went a little bit deeper than that to get it closer to his vision. If you don't get those questions back from your prospective artist, may not be, it might be a great match, but the result will not be exactly what you're after. And you should accept that. The budget might be less because of it.
Yeah, so that's a great point. I actually had a liaison, Stella Luna, who worked with me with that as well, because she knew him intimately through one of her best friends, and that's how we got that connection. And then I said, I want this, I want this, I want this, you know, and dot all the I's, crossed all the T's. So I'm assuming it's the same way in cartography. You know, the more detailed that you give them, the better. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think
more detail going out to the artist, but the more that the artist then comes back with, because I'm sure Anna then says, okay, I understand what you're after, but doesn't then jump into the work. You know, Anna, well, I'm sure, has questions.
Yeah, exactly. It's often a barrage of questions. And I will be specific. Let's say people often ask me like area maps or like country maps or setting maps. So I would simply say, if you say like a country map, I say I want a description of the country on one page, and then I want each like province or settlement to have like a paragraph, and meaning 5 or 6 pages. And I don't want to know, and now I'm paraphrasing Len here, because that was the most kind of awesome, cute, wonderful way of doing it. When I asked, and I talked to him to map Lendor Isle, and I said, and so please tell me what something about the island, what they look like and stuff. And he was like thinking for a few seconds. Well, you see, that town there had a cleric of a very unusual god, and he was so high, he was like 13th level. And that is perfectly good if you're going to run a campaign there or stuff, but it doesn't give me anything. And that's the thing. You need to learn to think like a cartographer to a little bit of degree, meaning what does the landscape look like, and what's the biome? I mean, is it desert? Is it temperate? Is it demon infested swampland? Is it something like that? It's meaning you need both the mundane bits and the overall picture. And is it a rich, fertile land, or dry, old, poor people that live there and can barely scratch a living out of the dry dirt and stuff like that? Meaning these kind of things that an author will put in a novel, for instance, that would very much tell you what the landscape look like. But if you don't think from a landscape perspective, a lot of people don't realize it. They will give you the elevation curves, but that only tells you so much. But to get like the story of how fertile it is and what are the farmers growing and stuff like that will tell me way more. So often it's interesting details that doesn't seem to be really into geography. Like if there are the hunters, what do they hunt there? What kind of wildlife lives there? That tells me a lot about what type of terrain it is. So it's kind of esoteric, weird details that can be really interesting.
Minnie's trying to get your attention, by the way.
Okay. Oh, yes.
Yeah,
she
maybe.
needs some more treats here. So that's good. Yep. I try to, we need to get Minnie some treats. Yep.
It's great points.
Yep.
So Alyssa put together a great checklist here. I know Peck's had a question and talking about negotiating a budget. I'm assuming we'll want to talk about that, how that actually transpires.
I think budget is probably the next thing.
Okay.
It may be one of the things that you as a prospective client will ask right from the get-go. How much do you charge? Having a little bit of information wrapped around that helps the artist come back to you with something. And not all artists, by the way, have rate sheets. I know some do, but depending on what you're asking for, it may just blow the rate sheet out of the water. Okay. And the more you can tell them up front, the more that they understand, whether it's a rate sheet that they have up here or something written down, the more that the two of you can come into alignment about what are we talking about on a scale of effort and time here. And effort and time is money. That's what we're talking about. So you may ask at the very beginning, or you may ask partway through the conversation with them, money is going to come up. Now, elephants in the room, you may be one of those people that doesn't have money and you want it to do it for exposure. Let's come back to that a little bit further down the road. Let's just say that you're one of those people that do want to pay for other people's time, and I hope you are. The budget is going to come up. It just is. And I think, honestly, if you approach someone like myself or Anna and you tell us what you want, and we agree that we want to actually do the work and we agree upon some kind of timeline, etc., Anna or I are going to come back with some kind of cost estimate. And I mean, Anna, I don't know what your thoughts are, but that's kind of been the most successful path for me. I've had one client that doesn't want to pay what I would charge, but there's such a huge name, I've sucked it up anyway because there's such a huge name and that's my choice. But otherwise, most of the time, I'll come back with a price point and just be mature as a client. If it's beyond your budget, you have two possible reactions to it. One is, thanks very much. It is a little bit beyond my budget range. Go off and find someone else. No one is going to get offended by that. That's okay. The other is, okay, can we simplify it? Can we make it smaller? Can we get, to, bring the budget down a little bit? That's an okay conversation to have as well. And this is the negotiation. And I personally don't get into negotiations much. I've got to be honest with you. What about you?
Not that often, but one of the things that I think, and I think that as a client, you fall into two main categories. One is like you're the DM who just want the coolest map in the world for your own game. That's the minimum client. Or you like if one fledgling little startup and say, I've been DMing and gaming and I'm dying to get something published on DM's Guild, or I want to try my luck at doing a Kickstarter or something. Meaning they simply finance out of their own pocket, or worse, maybe even their own credit cards, or something, just to feel like I want to get into the publication. I want to be someone in the RPG industry just for fun, or to test it out, or it's my life desire, so to speak, and they hire you. And I have a great respect for that. So if you're that kind of person, and also say that my budget is like $500, that's what I can spend on this first project, and be open about that. And because that kind of limits, meaning then instead of they spending a lot of time trying to get all the info out of me or give me info, I might say that no, that's out of my budget, or I'm not interested in doing something that cheap, or that small, so to speak. But I will probably not say that, because I've done things for $100 for charity, and but we get to that too. So I think it's important to be the other end of the client spectrum is like a big publisher like Paizo or Cobalt Press, even, that is like a mid-size, or Troll Lord or Frog God, or someone like that are working in the hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. They might have a budget of $200,000-300,000 for a project, and for them it's not so much if it costs $2,000 or $3,000 would not be the big thing. For them it might be time that is the biggest thing. So if they can squeeze it down to 4 months instead of 6 months, it might be doing so I think money it's a very different discussion for someone, a DM who just want to make the coolest thing ever for his friends, or for the game, or a publisher who simply say, we have a huge Kickstarter that we're going to run next year, and we hope to bring in $250,000 for it, and we want a map part of that. And meaning then all of a sudden then money might not be the object at all, so to speak. It might then time becomes much more of an issue. So for some clients, some discussion, money is everything, because they might have a budget of $800, and if they want to give $400 to do the map part, and the rest for some character portraits or whatever it is. So I will not get offended if someone even asks me, but the truth is, the harder truth is that my time is so limited that I've chosen to work on my Patreon projects and for Greyhawk stuff, rather than keep doing these for hundreds of dollars.
Makes sense.
And so I kind of cut that out of the picture. So what I do mostly for commissions are big projects that will run over 6 months or something like that, and that brings in $4,000 or $5,000 or something in that range, and then work on Patreon the rest. But I've also done small Greyhawk projects, and that's something I'm going to talk about at the end here, and for like $50 or $100 tweaking my Greyhawk map, because that's something that is fun. I can do it in an hour or 2 hours or something like that, on and off. But so don't be, I will not be offended. I'm actually, it's wonderful to be asked about every project, so to speak, and I'm way more offended about people that just think that I can just drop everything out of a hat and just work for them. So bigger publishers have offended me way more than small DMs who just want something cool I never get offended by someone who can't afford a big budget, but people who yell at me because I can't do it fast enough, that offends me way more, so to speak. So
I think that's really fair, and you're right. There was a level of, I'm going to call it almost respect. And if someone comes in, assumes you've got nothing going on, hey, I want you to map Pluto for me, let's go, and it's going to have a negative reaction to that. But if you approach someone like Anna and myself with, this is my timeline, this is what I'm after, and by the way, I've got a budget of $50, that's okay, guys.
Yeah,
that's okay. We may not be able to actually do anything for you for $50. We might, I'm just going to talk about that. But at the end of the day, I understand now what you're after and your budget.
Yeah.
and I can probably refer you to someone who will be very happy to work with you. And we only do referrals to people that are going to do good work. So it's okay to shop around too. You know, my husband actually approached an artist to do some character artwork and got hit by a whopping like $6,000 for a headshot or something like that. And my husband was like, thank you, little out of my budget range. I appreciate it. Appreciate your time. That was it. No hard feelings, just move on. You know, budgets can be an uncomfortable subject, but if you understand what you want to spend, sometimes you might even push that a little bit for the person that you're working with. And you give the person you're talking to enough information to be able to give you a price point, then you can assess just honestly if you want to pay that or not. And everyone's happy.
And you brought up earlier a really good thing that might come out of this discussion is to cut corners, or like, how do we minimize the cost, so to speak, and make the same project done cheaper. And there are ways that I do around it. And one of them is to, instead of going in for like full 3D kind of cool thing, and I just make some quick and dirty work in Photoshop. And I tell them that it will look probably 70-80% as good as the real thing, so to speak. But then you will get a top-down map in that scale and resolution, and you will never get anything else from the project. Meaning, if you want to do something fancier down the line, we have to start from scratch. But if you've done it right from the beginning, and I really modeled it in 3D, meaning then we can do isometric maps, we can zoom in and do detailed work on one area, we can do winter versions, summer versions, also we can do video flyovers, all sorts of cool stuff that publishers want down the line. And that will be a main part, because then I can add that in a lot easier later on. So what you usually cut away are different options down the line, so to speak. Then they will be completely separate projects starting from scratch. And as publishers and others have often a hard time understanding, because what they do, they simply assume that what I do as a cartographer is paint a pretty picture of a map, and that's it, so to speak. But it's way more to it. My analogy is like investing in good cartography is like investing in a rule system. That's something you will use over and over in different versions for the entirety of the product range, so to speak, of that setting. And so it's more like the rule system. It's not something you develop one book or one image. It's something you invest a lot of time and money and effort into, and then you can reuse the same data and so on in many different incarnations over a long time.
I got a difficult question here from M5 tie-in.
Yeah.
Okay. We writers may not understand how complex what we're asking for is. How do you break down complexity versus cost to the writer?
That's really tricky, and I usually go into three parts of it. One is the landscape bit, so to speak, meaning trying to think about the landscape, make real world examples, and saying, okay, they want a desert something, and then start thinking, okay, what kind of elements are in, so on. So break down the landscape. That's step one. Step two is to do who lives there. What do they do? What are the cities? Are there roads? Are there flying things? Are there spaceports or stuff like that? Meaning that the inhabitants and the monsters and everything that inhabits the landscape. And the third bit is, how is this going to be used? Published in a book, what's the format of the book, printed on posters and stuff like that? Because that, to me, those are the three main things that really affects the scope of the project, so to speak. And then take each of these pieces and break them down and try to understand and convey how that will do. Meaning, do you want videos of this? It's going to be a lot of promotional material that's going to be used. And do you want a top-down isometric? It's going to be illustrative on the front of the book, or do you just want that picture with a line art map on the second page in your novel, and that's it, so to speak? That will be my approach to try and explain to someone who normally works with words to what I do.
What do you think, Alyssa?
Well, and most people don't know, by the way, you know, how complex something is going to be, or necessarily what the end result is going to be. That's okay too. You've got past the elevator speech version. You've got a relationship going with this person now. It may be in its early stages. And this is why I said earlier, expect to get some questions back. Yes. Anna, everything that Anna just said is her questions back to you. What she's doing now is pulling those extra little strings of information. And I do the same thing. My subject matter is different than Anna's, and my tools are different, but I have a similar process. I'm going to come back to you with some now additional questions. Sometimes, honestly, I'll give you 3 different maps. I'll show you 3 different maps that I've done in the past and say, do you want this type of complexity, this,
okay,
or this? And I will literally show you. And they're 3 very different approaches. And that will, at least for me, give me a sense of what waters are we plunging into here. And as long as you're dealing with someone who's done this a lot, which is why I said expect to get some questions back. If you don't, there's going to be some rocky roads ahead. Because when I do come back to you and I am asking you questions, I'm basically giving myself a framework to work within. If I say it's going to be a $1,600 map, I've now assumed that even if you get a little bit more detailed than I was expecting, or maybe throw in a POI at a certain point that I didn't know about, you know, that ultimately I've got that built in for, I've got that accommodated for. I've got some wiggle room in there, but that's when you should expect something back from your artist. If you don't, they're not building in that wiggle room. They're not really pulling those details out of you. And there are details. And if they're not pulling those details out of you, they're going to come out once they're doing the work or at the end of the project. And that's too late. That's too late at that stage.
I hope that was some good answers to the question. So,
I'm sorry, but I can't stop chuckling because we're getting spammed with Kermit flails on the Cannon Fire Discord now, Alyssa.
That is awesome. Oh, that is so cool. That is awesome.
I gotta be honest with you though, I've done it because I have been the person commissioning the work. I've got caught up. This is my planet. This is my writing. These are my characters. I am, and I get caught up in that, and I'm Kermit flailing over it. I will come alive.
You get Kermit flail and feed the dog is the theme of the show. So it's awesome.
That was awesome.
And I think I've given Minnie enough treats for right now. So
M5, I hope that answered your question, and Pex, I think I answered your financial question as well.
So related to this, then, I think the next subject, at least from my perspective, is like early draft of the work, what to expect and when. And if you're not getting it, oh hell, throw up a red flag. Okay, I don't care if it's traditional artwork or a cartographer that you're working with. We should talk about contracts at some point, and maybe we can actually sort of deal with that. But like one way of actually ensuring that the project is pointing in the right direction from both sides of the camp here is to actually do some early drafts, to do progress shots, to actually, for me, I'll actually draw sometimes 6 different city shapes with different geographic features. If the client doesn't particularly know themselves, I'll extract it in a visual sense. Gosumba, I actually had a swatches thing that I had as an example that maybe you can bring up, where one client actually wanted a war game map, but they didn't know what style. They didn't know what style, they didn't know what colors, and it matters. If you're going to do something like 3,000, 6,000 hexes, there's so many different ways of approaching it. So I actually did a swatch format. We're going to do this project together. And I pushed this across the table and said, so we can now do these colors. We can do roads this way. We can do rails this way. We can do hills this way. We can do forests in multiple different ways. Every single one of these maps does roads, rivers, hills, trees in different ways. And just mix and match. Pick which one you want for each of these elements. And I do the same with my cities. I'll sometimes draw cities in different shapes and stop there and say, pick which one you want. Then I'm going to actually mark off some other things. Pick which one you want. Give me direction right now. And that's why I said earlier on, as a client, be willing to respond and give information back, because this would be me or Anna or the other artist pulling information out of you. This is still the question phase in some ways. But it's using a visual means to get that out of you.
Yeah. And I often send like examples from previous maps to
Right.
give them a chance to choose, should we go this way or that way, or symbols is one key thing to put in that I want to know early. Should I use, meaning I often offer, say, I can use the same symbols I use for my Greyhawk maps because that way I don't need to develop any. Or do you have symbols on previous maps that you want to use? Like we have in Cobalt Press, for instance, they had a set of symbols that we expanded on previously. But other publishers might simply say, oh, I want to have my own kind of cool symbols. And then and sometimes they want to go to someone else, so we have to develop that. And if that needs to be developed, that takes time and stuff and will add to the budget. So there's some on. And then comes the other big thing in this is like fonts, what fonts to use and styles and that. And that's something I often say, go in and look and take screenshots of the stuff you like, and then come back and we can look at it and pick fonts from it, because that's one. Symbols and fonts are that additional details that is very important to have in that the client needs to kind of, you need to kind of come up with what you like and stuff, and it will be a little often back and forth, and that's something you can take in the back and forth during the project. But symbol set, I think, is important because they can take a long time to develop one and take a lot of time. So that's so much not on city maps and dungeon maps and stuff, but when you do overland maps of kingdoms and setting maps, symbol sets are very important part of it.
And related to this, and I think the point here is, so you've commissioned someone, they're working on the project, and we really do need to sort of talk about contracts at some point here and whether to do them or not.
Definitely.
But it's if this person now goes completely silent on you, that should be a red flag.
Yeah.
Even if they're doing the work, you're not getting to see it. The odds of them coming back with something that is not what you want, even to Anna's point, wrong symbols, wrong fonts, because there hasn't been that back and forth. If Anna asks you about the fonts, she's probably already working on the map, but you'll have a back and forth about the fonts. She's asking you about the symbols because that's important to her. She doesn't want to do all of the symbols. And then at the end you say, oh, I don't like them.
And communication is vital both ways, because
Yes,
I've had
100%.
several projects that I've said that, okay, I need to know this, and in a couple of weeks I need to know, because then I move to this phase, otherwise I'm stuck here. And crickets, I don't hear anything. And then
that's
5
exactly
weeks later to say,
right.
oh, now we need it in 2 weeks. And I was like, I've sent 2 emails 6 weeks ago asking for it, saying that I need a month after I get that information before it's done. And then they can, so it's important that client check your inbox, and information needs to flow both ways. Otherwise, that will slow down the project. It will make the end results not as good as it could be, and it takes time, and there will be it might be critical errors in like file formats, resolutions, and size. So all of a sudden,
or even crop lines, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I needed a crop. Well, I didn't draw you a crop.
Yeah, and if you want to have a print, make sure you know the size of it before the project starts. I've had things that added in, I'm not going to say the publisher's name, but we've had things that I had to spend 1 month tweaking things at the end because they didn't have the right size of the poster map. They didn't know, and they just assumed, and they came back and they were using some Chinese print or whatever, and say, oh, this is the version. I had to rescale the damn thing. And I tell them now it's going to look blurry and we can sharpen it, but it will still look kind of funny. And we had to redo basically all the symbol ways, and it took another 6 weeks and do it. And I slapped another $1,000, which was cheap because I worked a lot of extra, but I wanted it done, so to speak. So there are, so that's the thing, is that you have to know the technical stuff. And that can be tricky, because if you want it printed, that means that there are a lot of things if you want to print a map professionally, that means that it's a whole myriad of stuff you need to go into, and proof readings and proofs and all this color separation. What's the print process? Do we CMYK offset print set, or is it a digital print version of it, and stuff like that? So there's a whole bunch of it that because I need to know that to send the right files and layering, for instance. Do you want to have what would it be able to blow it up? Do we need to have vector symbols and stuff on top of it, or is
Yeah,
just
but
a bitmap?
let's not scare anyone here.
No,
Because
it's
you're
just
throwing
that,
around
and
a
no,
lot of technical
no,
things. I mean,
and the thing is, if you're a little publisher and you just want to have it in your little book and print on demand, don't worry about it. It's only
but
if you're going to print it in a book
ultimately,
and a poster, that's when
you should
run
know
into
as a
it.
little publisher or not,
Yeah.
this is the size that it's going to be printed at.
Yeah.
And look, at the end of the day, expect some questions back, and you may not know the answer. And it's okay then to say to Anna, well, I don't know what CMYK means. She'll help you.
Exactly. But we had also had a question about scale that we should kind of take 1 minute and describe, because there are two things in cartography that rarely gets enough attention in fantasy cartography, because most fantasy maps don't need it. And one is scale and one is projection. Projection we can talk about in some later shows, so we skip that for now. But scale is simply the ratio that a distance on the map have in the relation to the distance in the real world. And it might be 1 inch on the map is 1 mile in the real world, or whatever relation, so to speak. And that is simple enough when it comes to a printed map. But scale is a bit more tricky when you use digital map, because then it's depending on your screen size. So a scale, the traditional is what, 1 to 10,000 or 1 to 50,000 or 1 to 1,000 and stuff like that. That's the traditional paper map that are printed at a certain size, so you can put like a ruler on it and measure the distance. But most maps these days are used in semi-digital form. They are printed in various different media. So therefore scale is more tricky when it comes to, and it's not as necessary. What you need to do in scale in a fantasy map is print, this is a mile, or this is 100 feet, or this is 1,000 miles, and you don't need to put the ratio one to the other. I think that's not really needed in fantasy mapping. But a distance measurement on the map, either hexes or squares, or just a little distance scale, that is the important bit, because you only need half of this, the other scale, because you don't need to do dead reckoning navigation on a fantasy map like you do in an airplane or ship at sea and stuff like that, because that's when scale really becomes important, down to a T, when you have to find things in the dark, so to speak. But so it's basically the ratio of the size of the map compared to the real world. That's scale.
So how's that come into effect cost wise, as far as on I mean, is that something you immediately go, oh my gosh, I can't believe, like, did you ever get like blindsided by a scale project?
Well, it depends on how much, it depends on how much detail, because if you take, like in my case, you take a setting map. If you want a map of Greyhawk, and you want to have a map of a Greyhawk in a book page 8.5 by 11, that means that the scale is so enormous that you barely see coastlines and Adri forest and the biggest mountain change. That's it, so to speak. It's quick and easy, and that could be, then you can map a really large area cheap, and especially depending on the style becomes very important, because if you just want some very simple sketching, easy, meaning I can do that in Photoshop in 5 hours, so that wouldn't be that difficult. But if you want something fancy looking with lots of little cool tree symbols and wonderful thing, then Alyssa is your person to do it, and that map might take much longer to do, and because you want to have, not Adri Forest is not just a green blob, it's 2,000 little awesome looking trees with some kind of cute little monsters or whatever it is going with it. And so style is important, and the number of features on the map is really important. So scale simply enables, if you have the larger the scale or the smaller the scale, so you have like really, you just see a small little area blown up large with really big, that means that you get a lot of detail in it. So it kind of take the same terrain, the same area, take a barony that is 10 miles across. If you print that on a stamp, it will be easy. Print it on a poster, and all of a sudden it becomes more expensive. So the land size is one thing, and the size of the final size of the print is the other one, so to speak. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I think
So,
though too. I
go
think that though related
ahead.
to that, I think it's fair to say, Anna, this also becomes part of the conversation. I mean,
Yes.
I'm working with a very big publisher right now, and scale didn't come into it per se. They knew what had to fit on the map.
Yeah.
And my part of this was going back to them, showing them what would effectively fit, what wouldn't effectively fit, and what wasn't going to look good at the size they were printing this at.
Yeah.
You know, and that becomes that two-way street. So I was able to go back to them and say, look, you want to get all of this on, but your print size is this.
Yep.
It's not going to look good. It's going to look terrible.
And
I gave them a mock-up. So that's why you want someone who is going to engage. By the way, before we move this forward, I think it's important to say, like Anna, and sometimes myself, we're dealing with projects that are long, okay, months and months and months in duration. So odds on you're going to get a lot of this conversation from us. We're going to tell you, you know, or we're going to work with you on scale and what will fit and what isn't going to effectively fit. But if you're paying someone $50, you're probably not going to get that. So I just want you to keep a level of perspective of what to expect out of your person, right? According to how much you're paying them and how much time they're putting into it. If they're going to knock something out in 4 hours, odds on they're not going to do 5 iterations with you, right? They're just not going to do it. They're charging you $50, 4 hours, or whatever it is. They're just going to like boom, 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 boom. But even then, I've worked with a guy called Dan Smith. He's a very talented artist who does a lot of character art for me. And even then, he'll pencil sketch it all first and say something like this. That's a midway point for me. I can have input on that. And that's what really the last 15 minutes of conversation has been Anna and I saying, expect some kind of dialogue. Your artist is going to probably ask you some questions. If you don't provide some information, because you don't know about the scale details in Anna's world, she's going to ask you. There will be a dialogue about it. Respond fairly quickly, otherwise it's going to stall the project.
Okay. Keep communication open. It's just like anything in life, interpersonal relationships.
Yep.
It's all about you know, treating people with respect and knowing how to talk to people and knowing you know.
Well, and this is your project at the end of the day, right? I mean, look, I'm not gonna throw anyone under the bus on this one, but I had a client. He's a great client. It was a good project, and he had a firm deadline. I always hit my deadlines. Period. I always do. So I hit the deadline, and I always like to try and actually hit ahead of the deadline, just in case, a little bit of like, you know, wiggle room. And it came to labeling. It came to labeling the map, and he didn't respond for like a month.
Oh my gosh.
Well, now I haven't hit the deadline. But that's not, and I reminded him, you know, but now we've missed the deadline, not because of me, because of you, the client. So just be prepared. It doesn't have to be sitting on your email right now. Just be prepared to be responsive.
Yeah. And that is also one that I can say to other artists, that deadlines are often very important at the beginning of a project, and they are important. A lot of clients, and especially big publishers, expect you and demand you to keep the deadline, but don't expect them to always follow it, because big projects can be derailed or delayed for all sorts of reasons, especially during pandemics and stuff. So often that's more the rule rather than the exception, is that if you have a big project and the deadline is 10 months from now, it's going to be delays and so on and so forth. But that means that you have to work on other things down the line too. So I can say for artists and stuff, don't expect just because the project is supposed to run for 7 months that it's going to be full work until 7 months and then you're not going to hear from it. I take deadlines like that. I know that I need to have this project finished by then, but I know it's a guideline, because I know that this project might be, I need to work 4 months really hard, and then it will be 6-8 weeks when nothing new comes up because someone else needs to write something, or some other project is other part of the project is delayed, and then I have to work really hard for 6 weeks after deadline to wrap it up, so to speak. So expect things to be changed and tweaked and stuff down the line. I say that to all artists and stuff, because that and that's something you just have to cope with. with, so to speak.
Well,
And
let's talk
build.
about that
Yeah.
point. And I was actually going to talk about contracts earlier on, but let's
Yeah.
talk about them near the end,
Okay.
because everything we're
Yeah.
saying goes into
Mm-hmm.
the contract,
Okay. Yeah.
right? Um, revisions.
Yes.
Revisions.
Oh yeah.
You just
Revision.
mentioned revisions,
Yeah.
Anna. You said
Yeah.
expect for things to be
Yeah,
tweaked.
and now I come. This is also very different because different artists work in different project, different techniques and workflows and tools and stuff. And my situation is kind of unique because the project have a number of steps. And one key first is the kind of concept phase when we sketching things, send back and forth some ideas, and everything is looking ugly. But I just want to know where mountains are, where rivers are, where coastlines are, because when I move into 3D, and then comes the kind of the getting the terrain in shape. If we do, I'm talking here about a full 3D cool reference map project. And that means that I need to nail that down, so to speak. And then it's free flowing, and we kind of add things and put the hills and lakes there, and the devil forest or whatever it is, or like it's be talking elevation and major features, coastline, rivers, lakes, and hills, basically, and or like volcanoes and stuff. And once we have nailed that down, it's very, very hard to change it afterwards. So I always tell them, we can't go back and change it later. That will be really tricky. I've done it a couple of times, and I told them that will be dirty and ugly, and we just do it in Photoshop. And that means that all the other options down the line we cut corners then. And that is something that a lot of people have difficulties sometimes, like in someone who paints in oils and stuff, so to speak. Once they start committing to actually making it, that means that you can't change the shape of the face or something like that easily, because once you start putting it down, then you're making real things. But then we come into the new phase when we put like roads and symbols and stuff like that. That means that we can add some extra cool names and stuff. No problem. That's easy to change that. We can tweak that until the last day, almost the last day. And then comes the end phase when you export things. You make the final versions, you put the layers in and stuff. And after that, it's terribly difficult to change anything. And that phase in a big project can be several weeks. And that's very important, that both that you communicate that to the client and that the clients actually understand it, because writers can't think like, oh, we need to tweak this. This text doesn't look good. Well, let's put there in the forest. And all of a sudden I'm supposed to put a forest on the map. And just because a writer can change one sentence, and that could mean 50 hours of work for me to go back and change it. And that happens often because that writers want to tweak the story's cool kind of thing, and they want to tweak it and say, oh, we want a lake up there. And it's like, oh, yeah, so stuff like that, it literally happened. Lakes and forests are things that seems to add, and the city all of a sudden needs a river. And I say, well, that city is like up on the mountain ridge. That's kind of hard. We need to topology of the whole area, so to speak. That's months work. And so I simply say, you skip the river in that city. And they were like, oh, that was vital part of the story. So there are things like that, especially on kingdom and setting maps, and especially regional maps that are detailed. A lot of stuff like that can cause a lot of trouble, so to speak. So that's why reading, and there comes the visual thing, meaning someone who is not a visual thinker have a hard time to see things when you have the napkin sketch stage, to see things like that. That's why you need to send a lot of different terrain samples and stuff like that back and forth. And often, and I'm probably guilty when I see text. I'm like, oh, that text looks cool, that story looks cool. I read it through in 5 minutes, and there might be 50 spelling errors, and I would have no clue about it. And that's why I think a lot of people, they look at my sketches, say, oh, it's beautiful terrain, it looks awesome, so let's go with it. And then these story elements come, we figure that out 3 months later into the project, which is hard. So this is tough. Cartography is in many ways, I think, more tricky to do than other forms of illustration, I think. But I don't do other forms of illustration, so I might be wrong, but there is a lot of tricky pitfalls here.
So when to stop revising?
That's the thing. For me, it's a different state. First, you stop changing the terrain. That's like one
Okay, in
third
your
into the
case.
project. Then the terrain is nailed down. Okay, so the mountains are where they are, the rivers are where they are, the lakes and coastlines are where they are. Then comes the biomes, meaning we say, okay, forests and superficial things, color of the terrain and stuff, sandiness and where rocks are and stuff like that, and how fertile, meaning or is it just grassy plains or fertile fields, for instance. That's something we can change much later in the project. And then after that is nailed down, we've done the textures. Then it comes down to symbols, fonts, names, and stuff like that. You can change that almost all the way up to the final export phase. So that is easy. And from a story point of view, it might be tweaking one sentence might need you to go back, so to speak. So we operate in a different form and with different connections than you do in the text. Yeah.
Cool. Alyssa, what's your time? Like, this is it. Got to stop doing the revisions.
Well, and it's a two-way street, ultimately, at the end of the day. From a client perspective, you should be expecting some kind of progress shots, regardless of the format, regardless of the subject matter that your artist is working on. The quicker and the simpler the project, the less versions you're going to get to see, but you should see something, right? Mm-hmm. So if I'm going to give you an example, maybe it's some character artwork, and you're given a sketch. And at that point, if you don't point out that the gun on this Shadowrun character is completely wrong and the pose is wrong, and they go off into inking and coloring, after that, the artist is going to have to do a redo, right? You don't need to understand the process. Just understand when you're basically signing off on milestones, okay? This is why when I'm drawing a city, I'm going to give, honestly, sometimes I send a client 20, 30, 40 iterations, and it's up to the client to pay attention to what I am drawing. And then I will, at some point, say, this now is going into coloring, and it's going to be a lot harder to change after this. Sit up, take notice, look at everything that's on there. You can't decide now that the scale is wrong. I've had that once in my entire professional career, and I will never have it again. And I threw away the project because at the end of it, after literally 27 iterations, then the client said, oh, no, the scale's wrong. No, you're part of this, right? Mm-hmm. Look at everything, every sample that your artist sends you. Look at the details. It's okay to ask for revisions. Do it as they're sending it.
Mm-hmm.
Not
Don't wait 4 weeks and then realize that the time, if you want something done quickly, you have to respond back very quickly, because otherwise you might stall the project, so to speak. The same way that you as an artist, you need to work quickly and send the information when they ask for it. And often I usually give, at least we have weekly checkup on things, and it depends. Sometimes in the early on there's a lot of communication back and forth, and then it's usually dying down a bit, and we go into rendering and whatnot, and then when it comes into texture work and getting the forest rights and the colors and stuff, it's kind of a peak stuff again, and then it's a couple of weeks or something, a month maybe, when I'm just sitting doing a lot of Photoshop work, and then comes all the naming and all that stuff with roads and stuff. So it usually goes up and down the amount of back and forth, so to speak, in a project. And then at the end, it's usually not that much when you go into the final, after the final fray of information going back and forth. It's all the technical stuff at the end, because then it's just a matter of sending them files and stuff like that. Then you go into that technical end phase, so to speak, when it's not much about the content, it's more about the format, file sizes, links, where to send it, Dropbox, whatever, all that technical, all the stuff that are surrounding it. And so I think we might go into contract stuff now. Yeah.
So a question out of a different
questions.
realm.
Yep.
Sam Dutter asked, and I think I've been trying to answer it on chat, is you all have a client base.
Yeah.
You get your clients different ways, word of mouth, community, right? It's a small community, but you needed to start somewhere as far as reach out and all? When you first started, how did you start building up yourself?
Alyssa, you go first. Yeah.
So this is kind of talking from like our perspective as the artist,
Yeah.
which is, a little bit different because this is meant to be, more from a now you need a map, now what?
Yeah, it's
Right.
But
Exactly.
I mean,
Exactly.
I started myself, honestly. I just posted something to Facebook. I posted something to Facebook in a role-playing group, and that was about, I don't know, 12 years ago or something like that.
yeah,
And people asked me to do a map for them.
yeah,
So I did. And I probably undersold my value, but I just wanted to draw maps for them. And that's how they found me. And that's how I was found. And my first professional client was actually Cold Ball Publishing, because they approached me and
same
said,
for me. Yeah, no, the second one actually. I had one before. Yeah,
we do a city for us. And it kind of grew from there. And it was like, oh
yep,
shit, I'm going to have to turn professional.
yep,
It,
for
it,
sure.
it was one of those sort of moments.
Yeah,
So
for me.
how was I found? Facebook.
Yeah,
Okay. So you built.
yeah. For me, it was kind of similar. I just was determined to finish my Greyhawk map, and I kind of understood that. I realized that because there was so much buzz about it, and I got email and stuff, and I realized this is going to lead to people want me to do maps. So I was, but the weird thing was that the situation was in that was that the way I've done the Greyhawk map was so damn ineffective and work, meaning I could never do maps the same way for any client because it will take forever and no one will pay me or wait that long. So I had to, in parallel, I had to develop a cheating way of doing the same thing faster and cut more corners. So while I was working on Greyhawk, the last, like, since, like 2010, when I started to think about moving here. So that's when I started to realize I need to have a different approach as well. So I worked for the first like 5 years on how to tweak things, the tools and stuff like that to make my process more effective, to do the same thing faster and looking better at the end. And I kind of worked on that as that was part of my job, to always make things better, faster, and more effective. And so that, but then I just kept doing mapping for Greyhawk, and then others came. First it was kind of just, oh, can you just do like DMs and publishers, yes, oh, can you do this, and it will be published everywhere. So there were like 2 or 3 duds that I just realized that it was learning experience for me, and that led to nothing. One, yeah, so they were kind of duds. I think I did 3 of these duds that I was just wow, cool, someone just wanted me to do it, so to speak, and they led to nowhere really. And then came there was one little project first, and then there was Lamentation of the Flame Princess. I think that came first, and he was desperate. Someone had turned him down and skipped, and he had 1 month, and I took it as a challenge. So damn, I'm going to do it for 1 month, and I think it was $1,000 or something like that, and 1 month, or no, he was a week. He wanted a week, so I said 2 weeks, and it took 10 days, and it was done, so to speak. So that was a quick and dirty Facebook or Photoshop job, and it was for a free game day, or some, what it's called, free RPG day, and so that was the first. And then Wolfgang from Como Press reached out to me and said, do you want to do Southlands? And I realized this is my break. So I said yes before we even discussed money or anything. So that's the other thing, is that if you approach the artist at the right time with the right pitch, you will get a yes instantly. Before then, I had turned down doing, and this is kind of interesting, to do both Eberron and to do Birthright. I've turned down to, and Birthright was and Eberron were both very close, and so there were discussions at Gen Con to do both with fan groups, and there were money, and they basically wanted to put money in my bank account, and they both fell apart, not for the money reason. They were willing to give me a lot of money for each of them, a lot of money, more than I've received for any other project, but to this day. So that was, but it was the amount of information. I said, I don't know these settings, because if I'm going to do what I did for Greyhawk, I need to pick brains for a year and I need to have access to all the information, and you need to tell me that on a continuous basis. And they backed out of because of that. So it's possible. So when someone says, now do you want me to do a Forgotten Realms or Dragonlance? Yes, hire me for a year. It will cost $20,000 to $30,000, but do it. Then I'm game, so to speak. So we can do setting, but it's that I need 5 brains to pick on a daily basis, and you need to pay me for a year. Then I'll do that. Yeah. So that's the kind of dedication that it's possible. Yeah, I would do it if the setting is right. I can do something like that, but it takes a lot of dedication, and very few, even publishers, balk at that kind of commitment. And I can totally understand that. What me and Alyssa do for a hobby sometimes is more than what dedication that publishers don't want to risk that upfront, so to speak. So, but it might come the day. You never know. Yep.
The contract itself, Alyssa, I know you gave us this copy here, which is nice. So, and this is detailed.
Well, ultimately, at the end of the day, we've done a hell of a lot of talking here, but it nets out. You want something, you're paying someone to do it for you.
Yep.
How to ensure that they're actually doing what you have envisioned in your head, being able to monitor and see what they're working on, because the more you get to see it, the more the final result will be exactly what you want it to be versus something that they want it to be, and ensuring that you get it when you need it, so it matches what you want when you want it. And they don't suddenly come back to you and say, I want more cash for this, right? It's a way of protecting both sides. Now, let's talk about contracts for a moment. I've done projects with no contract in place. I only do it with trusted people that I have a professional relationship with. I wouldn't advise against that. Let's be realistic, though. Unless you are a big-time publisher with a little bit of a legal team to throw around, you can't really enforce a contract too much, but it is a way of keeping both parties a little bit honest. It's a way of escalating it up. And it doesn't matter if you have a signed contract per se, at least have something, a version of this in an email where you both are agreeing to certain terms. Ultimately, at the end of the day, this sample here, I have actually done projects by this contract Gosumba has. If you want a copy of this as a starting block, ask Gosumba. He will give it to you.
No problem.
I am not a legal person. I'm not going to guarantee that this is going to make your project successful, but it is a good starting block for sure. And it covers some of the major things that we've spoken about today. This is my project. And it has a section at the top that describes the project. And at the bottom, it summarizes, this is what you're going to get. This is a color of black and white. This is the size. And it is a way of, at a very high level, this is what you're delivering. It has a delivery date in here. This would be also the place to do, are we accommodating for certain rounds of review and revisions? That is important to build in. It's also important to build in if it goes beyond that revision stage. Anna's finished with the map and you suddenly say, oh, sorry, completely different fonts, and can you add 3 more cities? You add into the contract, yeah, sure, but now it's an hourly rate of X amount, and both sides understand those are the terms. It keeps you honest, keeps the artist honest, right? So that's what basically this contract does. I've done projects for professional companies with less than this, but the terms are still in writing and understood. I still make sure I have every single bullet point in this contract, at least down in an email. I'm doing this, it's in color, this is my size, this is your crop. I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to do this amount of revisions with you. When I go into coloring, it's locked down. If you do anything after that, it's going to be at this rate. I at least get that in an agreement with them. So now you can come back at the end if there's a problem and like you've got something to come back to. If you don't have these subject matters, you can't say, hey, you said you were going to do this 17 inches by 12. No, I didn't. It's not my fault that it's only 9 inches across by 8. You'll have to scale it up. Now you've got a problem on your hands. So a contract, at least getting down the points of the contract down up front, helps everyone just level set and say, this is what we're doing together. Yeah. That's ultimately what the contract's for.
And contract is also good if you have a good contract to go for as a publisher, because that also means that you as a publisher have to think when you put it in the contract. And I think that's also so important, because that come things like, I think a couple of very important bits, meaning how much work is going to be done, of course, and the time frame, but also the technical specs comes into a contract, which means that you should think about them really carefully when you put them down in a contract, because then it might be really tricky to change them. So it's a good kind of way to negotiate and discuss from, because there's the technical aspects. And then one of the other very key aspects, who owns the right, and are the rights exclusive or non-exclusive and stuff like that. That's a very, very important bit going forward, so to speak. Is the contract, meaning are you paying some publishers simply they pay saying that, oh, they treat it as a piece of art, saying, oh, we pay you $1,000 to do this, to put on this page in the book. And then they simply say, well, the contract doesn't say anything about taking that image and put it on Fantasy Grounds, Roll20 and VTTs, for instance. And or is the contract saying that we commission you to make these pieces of art or cartography, and we can do what the hell we want with it, so to speak. So it's something, and that's something both the publisher or the person ordering the stuff and us, so to speak, both parties need to be aware of what the limitations of the stuff is, because otherwise I can't come in or Alyssa we can't come and complain afterwards that we find our maps in 10 other publishers' books, and do they have the right to sell the art, meaning do they simply commission us to do something and they keep all the rights for it? A lot of big publishers stuff, that's what they do, meaning Kobo Press can do whatever they want with my Southland map, and they can sell it, give it on and put it everywhere, so to speak. But that's part of the deal, because that was in the contract. So I knew that from the get-go, and I'm perfectly happy with it. But it's also important to have that in the contract, and it's one way to cut costs and stuff, and simply say, well, are you willing to do it much cheaper if the contract is only to put it in this book, and then if we want to put it somewhere else or use VTT versions or whatever, we pay you more down the line. In some ways, I will say no to that. In other instances, I might be happy to say that, okay, pay me a quarter of the money now, and then we can discuss future things. That depends on what the relationship with me have with the publisher. That's that will be the main one. A small one, but I'm non-trustee, I said, no, you need to pay me for all the rights, and it's yours, and that will be it. Sure. And then we discuss future. But for someone I really trust, sure, we can definitely start discussing details like that. Yeah.
So
to just expand upon that real quick,
yeah.
From a client's perspective, why should you give a shit about this? Well, let's say you could commission an artist to work on a map for you, and then after the project's done, they give you the map, and then they go selling it on drive-through, Roll20, putting out t-shirts, prints, etc. That may come as a rude surprise to you, right? So you should want to be thinking about that. You may not care about it, by the way, but you might. Back in the day, not that long ago, before the Roll20s and so on and so forth, odds on, an artist would say, I just want the rights to be able to do prints, etc., so I can sell them at conventions and things. And you would be okay with that. I almost guarantee that you'd be okay with that. You don't care that the artist is selling postcards at a stall. You don't care that they're doing t-shirts or, prints behind them on canvas. You don't. But you suddenly care if they're distributing in other channels. A contract is a place to then try to ascertain who has rights to do what in that respect. And I think an artist sometimes has a right to be able to at least do prints at their stall, right? Contract time is the time to actually ensure that both of you are on the same page with that.
Very insightful. Dubtouch asked, do either of you have any royalty agreements on any of your content that you have done?
No, I haven't had. There's
Okay.
been discussions about it, but so far I've stayed away from it simply out of my pessimistic nature at times. So I've said it's been better from my point of view to simply say that I take the money right away and they buy all the rights from me, so to speak, and then they can do everything instead of paying me down the line.
Unless you're doing something for Star Wars, it's a bunch of bullshit.
Exactly. Yes. And the thing is that it's been very small publishers that have done it, and to me, it's been like I don't even know how long they will exist. I have no way of knowing if they cheat on me or not, and so on and so forth. So
you can't track it. You're relying on them to be honest with you up front. I would say most products have a short run of activity and then it just stops. So you get a $32 check as your royalty, like monthly or whatever. You go, yay! You never see another one, and that's spoken from experience, by the way. I've done it once, and I will never do it again. It's just not worth it. It never pays out. Everyone thinks it's going to. It's not going to. Most small publishers don't sell anywhere near the volume they think they're going to. They just don't. Your royalty checks are going to be extremely small, and something crazy may happen that breaks the rules. It becomes the next Star Wars, and you're going to sit there and go, I wish I did royalties. But let's be honest, that's super, super, super rare. 99.9% of the time, not worth it. Just take the money up front.
But there are some now coming up. When speaking of VTTs in this, that is Fantasy Grounds, for instance, they run a scheme that a lot of publishers seem to use. I haven't done any of this, but I know others, my friends and stuff, who have done work for Fantasy Grounds. What they do is that Fantasy Grounds say that someone can do maps for a publisher and then put them on Fantasy Grounds, and you will get royalties on the sales of that module or those maps and stuff. And I think other VTTs have similar type of schemes. That
you're never going to make $3,000 that way though on a map.
Exactly. Yeah. So I was going to say that is something that can be often risky and whatnot, so to speak. So the way I've approached it is that I've simply said, no, you pay me to do the work, and then the right's yours. And then if you want to put it on whatever online stores and for various VTTs and stuff, it's yours. Because it's not only the money part of it, it's that if I have to do all the technical work on putting it there and managing it and all that, so to speak, that's a lot of work, and I don't want to have it. And then I get a lot of complaints about all sorts of technical stuff, and I need to know all the technical stuff about Fantasy Grounds or Roll20 or whatever in their stores and their requirements. So I've kind of stayed away from it, but it is a niche, and it's a big niche when it comes to cartography or the VT virtual tabletops. And also I think there is a niche to develop generic maps and put them on these map stores. That's something that I might
I
look into in the future.
I mean, I've got my stuff all over there, and I own a little bit of it, without a doubt. I will say though, related to this, there is a middle ground where, and I actually got it this week. I was offered a flat rate plus a bonus on how a Kickstarter did. Now, based upon that, and the guy actually has a little bit of a track record, so I was able to sort of approximate some funds. Based off that, I was able to go, yeah, you know what? Sure, I'll do it for this fee plus potential bonus. I'll do that. But I typically won't engage with royalties because it becomes extremely nebulous. Because who the hell knows what the royalties are?
Exactly. And it needs to be something like, if some big publisher who sells on Amazon or something that you could track afterwards, then I might say that, okay, if Wizard of the Coast wants to give me royalties, I might consider it, so to speak, or Paizo or some big publisher want to say, then I might consider it. But small publishers, no, I don't want that. So and I think it's too much of a hassle both for me and the publisher to start doing all that stuff. So yeah.
So Troy Cannonball asked a pertinent question, and I think it was kind of answered early on, but not. So if someone orders a map or artwork, and this is I'm assuming in negotiations, is it wise for it to be only for your use, or let the creator use it for other possibilities and without affect cost? I mean, the answer to that's yes, right? Of course.
Yeah, it will affect cost, but
Right.
normally I would only work on the fact that I work and they have all the rights, so to speak. The exception is my Greyhawk maps, because that I don't own the rights to them. It's fan art under the Wizard of the Coast regulation, so I'm not allowed to sell it. So I can't charge, and because I can't sell the rights to it, and that's why I publish them under Creative Commons. So what I can charge for is the work of doing them, so to speak, and then they will become public domain, or not public domain, but the Creative Commons. But I can do a version for someone to have at their table, but then they can't sell it. They don't have the right to sell it. So it will be published under Creative Commons, but they can then keep it secret and just not show it to anybody and just have it for their game. Okay, but if but they're not allowed to sell it, so to speak. But then they will be in trouble, not me. So I'm doing it more to protect them, so to speak. So that's something to take in mind, so to speak. Yeah.
And for me, honestly, my terms are all over the freaking place. Because if I have someone like, well, if I have the Frogs or Troll Lord Games or Chaosium, these guys own the rights. They own the rights. And if I want to do anything else, I have to go to them and ask. I have to ask, hey, can I possibly put this on a print and have it at my stall at a convention? And most will say, yeah, most are cool, but they're not going to let me go off and start selling it. Smaller publishers, I can typically work on a lower rate by saying, I want to be able to sell this through my own channels as well. I'll credit you for what the map origin is, but I want to be able to put it on my drive-through. I want to be able to put it, I want to give it to my patrons on Patreon. And so I want to say 90% of my work, I reserve rights to at least give it to map collectors, patrons, and I'm allowed to do that, but I don't own the map from a publishing perspective. My client does. They're the only ones that are allowed to actually put it in written works and so on.
Yeah, and I might do, and that's something I consider to do in a couple of years' time, to put a Kickstarter and make generic big land maps when I have it nailed down the process, and simply do like desert areas or a different series of maps and have them available in print and digital format and stuff like that, so people can make their own use of, so to speak. And then there will probably be a licensee version that a publisher can license it, and since it's not exclusive, it will be way cheaper. So it will probably be a way for small publishers who have small budgets to get like some really cool map that they can tweak and make into their own version of, so to speak, and maybe turn it upside down, or just use it and put their own labels and trimmings and stuff on it for a much lesser cost. Something that would have cost them $5,000 or $10,000 they can get for maybe $500 or something like that to get. But then it will be non-exclusive because others might use the same terrain for their version of the map and stuff. But it will be a much cheaper way of getting some really cool base for their product, so to speak. So that's something I'm looking into, a way of sharing the cost, so to speak. So I think that will be something interesting that small publishers might be very interested in.
And by the way, literally this week, I had a WotC artist that I commissioned for something that was for personal use. And he responded, I'll do it for this rate. Yeah. But if I actually can keep rights to just sell prints, then this rate. So it's okay to have that conversation, guys.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yes. And just because I haven't been up for it right now doesn't mean that I'm not up for it in the future.
Talk about it.
Definitely.
And just make sure that both parties are in agreement on it.
Yep. Yep. And other artists might very well be. I might have my hiccups and hangups and stuff that other artists might not have. There might be some others who love to have licensing and do all sorts of interesting deals and stuff, because there might be much more. I'm not much of a business person, so that's my kind of problem, I think. And I should be way more interested in business and all that part style around it. So yeah.
Miss J Maps asks, how do you go about pricing and licensing for existing maps?
That is really tricky. I've only started to think about this process, so that will be tricky. First, would be to think, okay, what is the base price for me to do this? So let's say it takes me $10,000 in cost to simply to produce it, so to speak. And then you have then you start having and say that, okay, should it be, since it's a non-exclusive, then it needs to be significantly less than that. And then I simply have to start thinking, okay, can I sell this to maybe 500 gamers for $100 each and recuperate most of the money that way, and then have a few high flyer, or should it be simply saying that a small publisher, could they license it per print run or something like that, or should just be a general license so they can do whatever they want with it and use it in any. So that's the other thing, is that it's in kind of a right, more like you license stock art and stuff like that, and you license it, then you can use it. You can either license it for one print or one use, or is it simply that my company now had to right to put it in as many products as we feel like forever? Then it needs to be way more. So it's a lot of, there are many different ways of having the license. Is it per issue per use, or is it per licensee get to use it forever in their product, so to speak? So it's yeah, so these might be different, and I might be open for many different versions of it, or I might be saying, okay, this is a licensing for that. You pay $100 for each use, or something like that, or you pay $1,000 for you can use it in any of your products forever, or something like that, or $5,000 maybe. That might be way too much for something that is non-exclusive, but so there are different considerations. And down the line is that I might be saying that a little publisher that I think really cool is like, one company approached me. There were two guys doing games for kids, and I thought they were really cool. And we say our budget is really low; it's only $300. And so I said, but I like the idea so much, I do 2 maps for you for $300. It was small little cute things, but
You,
it
me,
was,
and Miss J, by the way, have worked for the same company. Miss J
oh
knows
yeah,
exactly who you're talking
yeah,
about.
yeah.
Cool.
So yeah, so it was, yeah, we actually, yeah, we did, and I thought it was good. So I'm definitely negotiable. I don't say that, oh, everything I charged $5,000 for. No, not at all. And so it's not that. But if someone comes and saying it's like a business project, and they start talking money right away or whatever, then okay, then we're talking money and big projects. So it's definitely what I do and stuff. So yeah.
Very cool. And you know, look at this. We've already blown almost through to 2 hours. Isn't that
Yeah,
amazing?
yeah. I hope we haven't babbled too. It's been too harsh and too babbly. I hope it's
Oh,
been
this is
kind of
good.
interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
When
So
this started, it was like, I hope we have enough to talk about.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, we have David ask something here. Yeah.
yeah, about stripping out Greyhawk content on a Greyhawk map, which would be a lot of work, but I imagine for the right price, anything's doable.
Oh yes, that's something I definitely, and I want to do. That's one of my projects going forward, is to do it more or less the other way around. What I'm thinking is that to do a generic, so-called generic Kickstarter, means that the generic terrain will be possible to place it in Greyhawk, so to speak. So I will make dual use out of it, so to speak. So yeah. So I'm trying to be a little bit tricky with that way. So I can use the terrain in future Greyhawk projects, and also launch a Kickstarter or something, or sell it somehow as generic terrain as well. So yeah. So that's definitely possible. Yeah.
See, if I'm thinking already, Altamira, I don't need to
Yep.
put any Greyhawk content that's in published source anywhere in that map or around the area or
Yeah.
whatever in that. So I'm free and
Yep.
clear because it's
Yeah,
all
you
mine.
can
So
commit, exactly, you can commission to me or Alyssa to do it, and then you can sell it or whatever or something, or you can simply say that make it and then give it away to every Greyhawk gamer,
yeah,
and so becomes a non-exclusive, meaning you have
it's a lot
multiple,
to think
exactly,
about.
meaning you have multiple options, so to speak, that
Yeah,
you can
lots
kind
of
of,
options to think
yeah,
about in this
yeah,
discussion. It's really gotten my.
yeah,
I'm so thankful for you both doing this episode
yeah,
on this, just to get. I know a lot of people out there are just they're thinking a lot more of how to approach this and how to
yeah,
really be detail oriented,
yeah.
you know, and to ask the right questions and keep the communication channels open. So, yeah. Oh, you meant the other way around. Other way around. You could something like a fancy. You could
Well,
also have
yeah,
an
and
Ames
it's
so you could recycle it as a Greyhawk City.
yes,
Uh,
yeah. Well,
oh,
yeah, I haven't done it yet, but it's something, yeah, I keep that in mind all the time.
okay.
And even if I don't recycle exactly, I do workflow and I take assets like textures
So you could layering
and stuff like that.
right
Yes.
off. Yeah.
And symbols back and forth and stuff like that. So yeah, so there is definitely a win-win, so to speak. What I do for Midgard maps, and first of all, what I do for Greyhawk maps have affected the way my ability to do cool Midgard maps, but also what I've learned and some textures and ideas and workflows and stuff from my Midgard maps are now feeding back into the Greyhawk side of things too. So it's a kind of a, they're not completely different worlds. Even if they're different worlds, there is a lot of crossover in technology and bits and pieces and stuff. So that means that the way I do Greyhawk maps means that I can do cooler maps faster and cheaper for Cobalt Press. But the fact that I can do cool Cobalt Press maps means that I can make my Greyhawk maps a bit cooler that way too. So yeah.
Listen,
Oops,
what do
now
you
I
have
have
to say in closing to this great topic tonight?
yeah, I have some ideas, but now I have a doggy that wants to eat treats out of the bag here. So I have to put up her and feed her some more treats. Yep. Yeah, Alyssa, you go first. Yep.
Yeah. What do you think, Alyssa, in closing on this topic?
So in closing, I suppose I just want to say that you want a map, you want art. Now what? Ultimately, at the end of the day, you're building a relationship with someone,
Very good point.
and
Very good point. Yeah.
you are either going to build a great relationship, and it happens, or it's going to crash and burn. And they just do, both
Well,
sides
they
of the
stay
fence.
as a business relationship and that's it, so to
Well,
speak.
yeah, but I would also say that's a successful relationship. I'm talking
Yeah.
about you commission an artist and they disappear off the face of the earth with your
Yeah.
money or not. You
Mhm.
commission an artist and they don't actually do what you wanted them to.
Yeah.
And my point being is, at the end of the day, just recognize that you're building a relationship. It could be a professional relationship. It doesn't matter. It's a relationship.
Yeah.
And building safeguards along the way for yourself. Communicate clearly
Mhm.
and often, because honestly, just doing that avoids any surprises further down the road. If you commission someone that you've never met, red flag. They don't really ask any questions of you, red flag. And they don't give you any progress shots, red flag.
Mhm.
Then there's you're increasing the level of risk. So for me, this is a relationship building game. I have very professional relationships with many different companies, but ultimately they're built upon communication. So just communicate. This is a social thing.
Yeah.
Communicate, like both sides. I actually honestly feel my customers are reassured by the way I'm communicating back with them, the questions I have, the progress reports I'm providing. So if you're not getting that from a client perspective,
Yep.
you're not getting the communication that you should be expecting. So I would just say, recognize that fact. It doesn't matter if it's a $50 thing or a $10,000 thing. If it's $10,000, by the way, I'll do it. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you should be getting something back from the person that you're working with. Yeah. Right, you should. I actually commissioned someone the other day, $50 to draw me some little map components and things like that. Even she was, here's my first batch. How does it look? Here's my second batch. How does this look? I'm like, she's communicating with me. I'm reassured. There was no contract because I was reassured. So for me, that's my takeaway. Approach it that way.
Okay. Yeah. And also don't expect publishers to fork up enormous amount of money right away. They will ease into it, so to speak. And and big publishers will not be the first one to hire you, no matter what, so to speak. And then when they do, they often have stringent, meaning I haven't worked for Paizo and Wizard of the Coast. I've been approached on a couple of projects, but there's not been the time or there's been other issues around it that I couldn't take it at the time and stuff. And they often have, like, when they come and knock on the door, you need to be able to drop a lot of things because they're the big ones, so to speak. So it's kind of, but work on it and do good work. And like someone said, the reward for doing good work in the RPG industry is more work. So
and build
more
it's relationship, right?
yes,
It's a
yeah,
reputation.
yes,
Too, on
yeah,
both sides.
It's a small industry, and if you screw up, then it will go around, so to speak.
As a customer and as an artist.
Exactly, it works both ways, because artists, we talk about who doesn't pay and who kind of is non-communicative and whatnot. So it works both ways. So yeah. So try and be friendly and professional and inspire each other and kind of, yeah, ask and be interested, both as a publisher and someone, be interested in what the artist is doing, and also the same way when you're doing it, be interested in the project and the product and so on. Even, yeah, and kind of ask questions and so on, and realize that you take on the responsibility, because doing a map for a world, it's just, think about what Darlene did 40 years ago, and we're still living with it and wonders over it, and people still have it, meaning it's an honor that I might have done, meaning people might have still pour over my maps decades in the future, which it might be the legacy I leave behind. So it's kind of something I have to put a lot of effort into and treat responsibly, even if it's just for a game, it's just fun. It's just for it's not real, so to speak, but it needs to be treated with respect and dignity and fun and inspiration as well. So it's kind of tricky. But there is one thing I want to say as a wrap up, and that is, I'm going to open up a new way of commission Greyhawk work, and I'm going to set up a special patron tier for a few. I think I will start out with 5 patrons, and I haven't set the exact price, but I think it will be $30 or $40, somewhere around there, per month. And I will give someone who wants, if you want to have your own version of the Greyhawk, of my Greyhawk map, Flanese map, with your own settlements and changes and stuff, you can kind of subscribe to that Patreon tier, and we can have a session each month where we put in things and change names and put in new roads, like I do for Jay.
I'm spoiled.
And exactly, and a few others. So yeah, I've done it for a few others. So I want to see if I can set up a test. It will be a test run for a year or something, and then evaluate on both sides if it works for me and if it works for others. But it's going to be a way to hire me on a monthly basis, so to speak, to do work. And it will be a couple of hours a month. We can do like a Zoom call and discuss things, so you can send a list of changes, and I will simply say, well, I can do this much this month. So a few hours per month on a continuous change, so to speak, of things. And over time, it builds to quite significant change, so to speak.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, it builds up, so to speak, because you can go in and change 20 settlements or names or stuff like that every month, and some roads or whatever every month, and it builds up over time, so to speak. So yeah, so that is something I want to open up for. I think I will start with 5, and then see if that works really well. I might bump it up to 10, but it's a long-term commitment. So I need to know that I have like 10 hours or 20 hours a month or something like that to do it. So I will start. Yeah, exactly. I will start with 5, and if it works really well, I might say a year from now that, okay, I can do 10 maybe, or something like that. But I don't think it will ever be more than 10, never ever. Yeah. But 5, I think, is a reasonable way to have it, so to speak, and see if it works. And I will also write in that I might want to end it, so to speak. I might boot someone from it if the conversation doesn't work, and so on. Just like someone can simply say, no, this didn't work out. So it's not a commitment that you pay forever. You can pay me and then simply say, no, it didn't work after 3 months, or I got what I want, and then you can stop paying me, and that will be it, so to speak. But I want to write in and say, I also have the right to end that that process too, so to speak. We both have that right, so to speak. And I will, just for legal reasons, I have to put in there saying that I can deny a request for name for whatever reason. If someone puts obscenities and stuff like that, we talk about contract. We have to have stuff like that in there. So But I think it could be an interesting, cool way for someone to be able to tweak make their own version of the Greyhawk map, so to speak.
Awesome.
Yep.
And Anna will be back in 2 nights. So
Yes.
yeah, absolutely. So we got a lot of fun going on. I figured I'd come here to the shout outs. But so Alyssa, what's going on too? What do you got? What do you got brewing? You got anything fun going on?
Yeah, I've got a lot of things brewing going on. 2 maps for Chaosium, can't tell you about them. One is getting close to being finalized. I've got the 2022 version of the cosmology of RPGs going on.
Oh yes, it looks so cool. The sneak peeks you showed.
I am up to the letter H. I haven't got all the way through it yet. It's already looking H or F. God, I hope it's H. It's going to be over 1,000 games, and I'm adding to that map. So that's going to be the main thing. I'm hoping to have it done for GaryCon next year. And I've got some fun projects that are going to fill up like the next 6 to 9 months of next year. I'm also going to be doing the GaryCon convention map again next year. So I'm really, really, really pumped about that. And we've got some fun things planned for it. So I'm super pumped, and I'm going to be streaming on the GaryCon channel next year as I work on it.
Well, that's cool. Very, very cool. Starting in 2022, do you know what night?
No, I don't. Okay. No, I mean, I'll probably start it this year once I'm done with the Chaosium maps, to be honest with you. I like to try and get a jump on things. But yeah, haven't done it. Just Luke asked me if I would, and of course I will. It's Luke.
It's Luke.
But yeah, I don't know what night yet. I don't know when. I just know that I will be doing it, and you know, a couple of years ago I did the GaryCon 12 map, and it was a great journey because it's taking a hotel convention map, and it's not your normal hotel.
It's all over the place.
Oh,
it's all over the place.
You showed it on the first episode
show.
Right,
the first.
Right. I actually had a guy walking the site, taking photographs, so we could be sure that it was accurate. Because a hotel map misses some things. The city planning map misses some things. Yeah. The previous maps from GaryCon missed a lot of things, and they can move walls around inside the convention itself. So it was a journey, and I'm hoping to take that. We're gonna rebrand it. We've got an exciting scenario that they're gonna do next year, and this map is gonna look like nothing else I've ever done. So I'm really pumped about that one.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Lawful Stupid just rated us in. Thank you so very much. Yeah, they're taking part in virtual Greyhawk Con as well. Thank you so very much for that raid in. Hang out. We do have a giveaway from Frog God Games ! Drawing. Please feel free to sign up for it. You know, and we're going to have we'll have a little fun here at the end. Here we're on shout outs now. We've talked about I need a map. Now what? So Anna, what else is going on? You got anything else you would like to discuss?
Yeah, I have a little bit. What's going on in the background here is my new Greyhawk repository. I've added a lot of stuff, so I'm going to put the link to all my links. There will be more map streams that I'll sit and do live mapping sessions next week, and also at the bit.ly/GH Maps, you can take a look at this, and that's my new home for Greyhawk content. So try it out and see if it works, and report back to me if it doesn't. So because I think it's a really cool place to find all the stuff, and I've loaded it with old stuff. More is coming, and new stuff too. There's the latest Earth model is in there, and the Atlas is the new home for the Atlas and stuff. So I'm trying out a Notion because it's so easy for me to upload and manage it that way, and it's accessible, hopefully very accessible for others too. So yeah.
Awesome.
And yeah, so and then we have Legends of Lore and stuff. So and there's a bunch of stuff so coming in. I'm working for Griffin Lore Games is the big thing right now, doing an Arcadia map for their latest Kickstarter that was very successful. If like a month ago they had it, and so I'm working its delivery in a couple of weeks. So it's kind of that intensive phase when we start nailing things down, so to speak. So yep.
Yes, sure. Alyssa, the massive Tep group, the Sphinx art, right? Was that you, Alyssa?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
You're in that group,
Dale.
are you?
Yeah. Dale's all over. Dale's like, behind the scenes guy, except
Yeah,
when we talk about Great Kingdom. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I am a huge Cthulhu advocate. I love Call of Cthulhu. If I run something, it's always Call of Cthulhu or Medieval Cthulhu or Invictus. That's my shtick. That's what I do. And I was not happy with, there's a description of the Sphinx that Lovecraft did. There's a description of the Sphinx that's obviously in Masks of Nyarlathotep, and all of the artwork out there doesn't match it. It does not match either description. So I asked an artist if he would be willing to actually draw me his interpretation of it, and he did.
That's awesome. Really cool.
And
So,
thank you, Cal Steph. There is a Meyer Hawk section in that one, so I'm so glad that people have discovered that. So yeah, so I put a section, and it's one big database. So I can actually present this material in many different ways. So there will be kind of everything for Nyrond and everything for Foriundi and stuff like that in the future too. So it's very easy to make these changes and present it, because it's not a website, it's Notion, so I can work on it on my computer and others can see it right away. So it's a cool way of doing it.
Yes, that's good, sure, because John is doing Rel Astra, if I recall, for his new game. So, all right, so what's going on here?
Yeah.
So we have, if you're new to Grey Hawk, I know a lot of stupid people came in. Thank you so very much. And if you're, we had a lot of new people on the stream today. I have never seen your names before. Thank you.
Awesome.
Part 2 of 3 weeks. We are doing Grey Hawk campaign development. How do you do it? Go about from scratch or whatever. Last week we did PCs and NPCs Sunday night, and it's now, note the time, 7 p.m. Eastern, not 7:30. Kind of made it a little earlier, and you all you know why. Gary Khan is available at 7, their channel to raid in. So we moved it up a half hour. It worked last week, so we're going to go 7 o'clock again. We're going to talk locations and reference books. So if I say I want to do Venturing in the Vespian Forest, I'm going to get out the Marklands book. Dale, we're going to say we're going to do Great Kingdom. We're going to get out Eyes of the Evil, not Eyes of the Evil, oh my gosh, Ivid the Undying, or whatever. And we're going to try and go through a lot of locations, give you some ideas to how to start up your campaign in Grey Hawk. So that's on Sunday. The next week of streams, Wednesday night. I'll do this real quick. Wednesday night, Migrations. Okay. David Leonard's going to join us. Grey Hawk Musings, the blogger. There's his link. Oh, thanks, Skag. I really appreciate it. Thank you so very much. Next Wednesday, it'll be myself, Grey Hawk Mike, and Anna and David Leonard talking migrations of humanoid tribes, demi-humans, Iridians, Beklunish, Desul, all throughout Grey Hawk. We're going to go into that depth on Wednesday. Thursday, I haven't updated the date on this. Sorry, it's the 20. It's that is not a. That's correct.
Saturday.
That's the Saturday night special. Yeah. So my normal game's on Thursday. The second part of what we did last night. This is the Saturday night special. Big game. A lot of all-star players. We have, and they've confirmed. So we have the sculptor Christine Van Patten and her husband are playing in the game. We have Mike Disney, because that's all about his character Skarn and Tea Time with Taryn. Cassandra de Monty Hall. Anna, yes, you available? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go, and that'll be the 6th, and then we may add one more in there if that person's available. We'll continue with the story of Skarn, and that'll be on our next special weekend game, 6 p.m. Eastern, next Saturday, the 18th. And it's always a Titan Dice giveaway from Stratagem and Wiz Dice. Everyone loves those big dice, so thank you. We will have some fun with that, and then beyond that, Grey Hawk Con is coming. It is coming, and it is coming hard. So note that. And I'm just going to show one because Lawful Stupid rated in here real quick, and that is note that they are on Sunday morning. All right, so as you can see, the Fane of Whispers in 2E. So we got some old school content from Lawful Stupid. It's 8 a.m. EDT. So that's Eastern Daylight Time. I think it's sold out in the system. It's that would be 7 Central, because Tabletop Events is in Central. There are still like 25 events with open seats. In fact, we just put another Greyhawk Reborn game in today. So there's a new game in there. Chantel, you got spots open. Armin's got spots open. Tom Van Veen, Aronir has spots open. I think even Alan Growley has a spot open or two. So there's a lot of open seats for good games. So sign up. Here's the link right there. Boom, go in. It's $5 just to cover costs. And then if you want, then you can order one of these great shirts as well that are available. I'm running out of large ones because apparently everyone's old heavy set guys like myself, right? So I'm running out of the XLs and the 2XLs. But other than that, great show tonight. Let's do the giveaways. Let me go back to the main screen. Thank you all for such a wonderful, wonderful evening.
Yeah, we can say we will be back with Fantasy Mapping Show in next month again.
Next month, yes.
Yeah, we haven't set the date, but look in all the social.
Yeah,
media
we'll set. We may
stuff.
set the date after this. My guess is because Greyhawk Con is that first weekend in October. I need the weekend after that off.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
It might be late in the
probably
month,
the 15th.
So 15th
of October, I think, is the date I looked.
Yep.
We'll
Okay,
verify
that sounds good. Yep.
I'm going to close this out. Last call. Thanks, Gal. You got yours? Good to hear. Very good to hear you got your shirt here. So let me close this out. And the winner of the $25 gift certificate to Troller Games, which I will whisper you the code almost immediately after the show, unless I crash everything. Closing it out. Here we go. The winner is dun 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 Obsidian Risk. Obsidian Risk Rats. I just saw him say great stream as always. So there you go, Obsidian. I will
Awesome.
I will put that in. Yeah, there you go. Grats. I will send that to you via Discord. Okay, no problem. I'll get it to you in a little bit. Thank you, Pex, for doing that, and thank you, Frog God Games, for basically being the main sponsor of the Fantasy Mapping Show. Note that their Necropolis Kickstarter is still going on, I believe, and you can still get that.
No, that's done.
That's ended?
Yeah.
You can't get in late? Oh, sorry.
Well, you might be able to sort of get in late, but definitely the Kickstarter is done. Pex will be able to sort of indicate if there's some mechanism for late bidding.
But the Rapinathic Miniatures Kickstarter is going on now. That's linked in through them, Necromancer Games, and the miniature company that's doing it. So, which is really cool, and I was excited about that. I know Ashar was as well. We're going to raid into someone I've never raided into before, and we're going to raid into NPC Voices, and that's Josh from Blue Box's stream. He's got his own channel. He is Brim, his half ogre character on Blue Box, is in the Grand Melee of Altamira that Saturday night. Yep. So we will see him. Let's raid into Josh. He's got like 11 people on now. Let's multiply by 6 or 7 times. Okay, sound good? Sound good. Alyssa,
thank you everyone who came and watched, and all the good questions and wonderful in the chat and stuff. So thank you.
Yes, thank you everyone for another wonderful show on a Friday night, and I really appreciate the participation. We'll see you all soon. I'll see you all Sunday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, for a great Gavin show with Anna, Jason Zavoda, myself, and probably that mysterious Tim will show up too, because he's mysterious like that. So we will see you all Sunday. Have a good night. All right, let me set this up. Thank you. Thank you all for the nice thoughts here.
Yep.
All right. I didn't even tell him that we're raiding into him, so he's gonna be shocked, which is great. I love shock value of a raid.
Yeah, you did so cool the
other night when I did Darling Creep Show,
Yeah, he had like 4 or 5 or 9 or something, and you brought in like 175 or something.
All right, we're getting up a good number here.
Yeah.
That's great. All right, so that's almost 6 times what he had at least. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'll see you in 2 nights. Have a good one. Make sure that went in.
Yep, popped over.
Okay. Thank you all.